Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. I'm your host, Nicholas Allen, and my guest today is Kurt Roqueplot, a Green Beret from the 1st Special Forces Group. You might also know him as FNG Kurt on Instagram. He is a member of the FNG Academy, founded by U.S. Army Green Berets, here to help you get selected. He is also the host of the Formula America podcast, and I will have links to his socials in the show description. Today's episode is brought to you by the Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. Precision Wellness Group helps you restore balance, unlock vitality through bioidentical hormone therapy and evidence-based personalized telemedicine. Dr. Taylor Bosley is a Green Beret, a U.S. Army veteran, and a board-certified physician. So he knows where you've been, where you want to go, and how to get you there. And he's an actual doctor who can prescribe you actual medicine. It's a bonus. So if peptides, HRT, TRT, hormones, testosterone, if this is something you've been looking into for a while or have questions, look no further than Dr. Taylor Bosley and Precision Wellness Group. I will have links to their website and socials in the show description, along with Kurt. I do appreciate you guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, pass these episodes along. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Kurt Roqueplot, welcome to Lesser Known Operators, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, absolutely. I think a couple weeks ago we did your The Team Room. Is it The Team Room?
Yep. Yeah, The Team Room. That's our Patreon. Yeah, we actually, I just started recently to where I was starting to kind of interview people, kind of almost podcast style. I mean, you can only make videos. I've been doing The Team Room now for like a year and a half, weekly videos. And eventually I feel like people just get tired of hearing me just run my mouth the whole time. And so it's good to branch out and get other people's perspective. And so I recently started getting into that. So that's been a lot of fun. I enjoy doing that. So it's pretty cool.
That's a tough gig. The solo with the alone here with nobody to talk to and just the camera, and you're just talking and going, man, this is weird.
I remember the first time I did it, I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm looking at my old videos and they're just so awkward. It's true though. Like if you have to think of the camera as like a person that you're sitting there looking into and talking to, but it's a unique experience for sure.
Well, you're doing a good job at the FNG Academy. Now, you didn't come up with FNG, did you?
No. So as far as the FNG Academy itself, my buddy Sean, or people know him as Buck, him and I went through the Q course together. We've, ever since I think we met in the very beginning of the Q course, and just became really good friends. But after COVID or during COVID, we had both gotten out by then. He was a police officer and he had stopped doing that. And he just wanted something to do to pass the time. And so he got online and started talking on YouTube about how to become a Green Beret. And that just turned into the FNG Academy. And then shortly after that, I came on board and here we are now.
Here we are now. Yeah. I envy people that are like, oh, if my friends from the Q course and my friends from my first unit, fuck, bro. I have one friend from my first unit that I still talk to, and basic, everyone, nobody. One in basic, also one in my first unit, different people, and then the Q course. I don't even, maybe from the show. Now I've gotten contact with a few of them, but man, I didn't keep contact with anybody. I feel so bad about that.
Yeah, there's a few people as far as basic training. There's a couple people that I still keep in contact with. Like you're saying from the show, people randomly will message me or be like, "Hey, I saw you on YouTube." It's like, "What's going on, man?" And so like I've kept up with a few people because of that. But otherwise, it's just handful of people here and there. I didn't really keep, especially with the Q course. Like you're always so busy. People get dropped all the time, and by the end of it, it's a different group than what you started with. And once you get to group, it's like if somebody's not on your team, like you and I were in the same company for a little bit. I didn't know you. If somebody's not on your team, then chances of knowing that person are pretty slim.
Yeah, memories fade pretty quickly, especially with the op tempo and group and everything. And I've said many times on the show, you could be in the same team room with somebody and not know what they're doing at times.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
I I was on a team. I know what a warrant officer does. I have no idea what a warrant officer does. and they're sitting right there. Like, what is that? What's that dude doing? You don't find out till you're a fox, right? Really, what they're doing.
Dude, I never had a
So,
warrant officer. We
oh,
never
really?
had one. I think our max strength on our team was like 9 people, maybe 10 people. We never had a warrant.
Well, they dropped a team from each company in throughout regiment a couple months ago, and I've heard now unfounded rumors that they're going to drop a company from each battalion.
I had
Have
a
you heard
buddy,
that?
yeah, a buddy in first group reached out to me last week and told me that. So I'm looking at it. I'm guessing our old Seco is probably going to be the one to get put on ice for a bit.
I wonder if they'll do it at random either, and just because they have to euthanize all those guys. It's very terrible. It's
Yeah, I know.
terrible. Yeah,
Such a waste, dude. All this
such.
training and experience.
I've had this. When did you graduate?
From the Q course?
Yeah.
I graduated in February of 15.
Okay. So you're 5 months after 4 months after me. Yeah, 4 months after me. Because I was end of October. So we basically went through the same Q course, and I've been telling people, and we've been analyzing the the pipeline then, and phase one was IUW. Almost all the people that got dropped were in phase one. If you could add all the phases up together, and they still didn't add up to all the dudes that got dropped in phase one, IUW. And the big thing was land nav. Land nav didn't even compare to everything else. You could add all the other phases together, all the drops, and it didn't compare to the land nav. And it's just astounding how they would have selection. They would have get select people. They would have them PCS from all fucking places all over the country, come to brag, get their family there, get all set up, and then have a surprise selection
Yeah.
at the beginning of the course, and then kick them out
Dude,
after they.
IUW, that was SFAS part two. And and because that's when, for people that don't understand, so it started off easy. So we would go through and we would be the G's for Robin Sage for the
That was a
guys that
lot
are
of
about to
fun, but
graduate.
you lost all your fitness.
Exactly. And that was awesome. But exactly, you're out there for 2 weeks. You lost all your fitness. And then when you get back, you got to go through gates. So you got to do the PT test again. You got to do the 12-mile ruck again. You got to do land nav, which in my opinion, the land nav course for IUW was way harder than the one out at Hoffman. And so that was like guys were just dropping left and right. And it was, thinking about it now, it's like probably not the smartest way to go about things. Like
They did
it's
it for
you just
six
got
years. They did
selected
that
for
for
these.
6 years.
I don't know,
Uh,
dude. That was a wild time. I remember we had this one guy. We called him Sergeant Spaghetti. He was an Italian dude, and
Full of spaghetti.
yeah, he ran us. I forget what we did. I think we did our 12-mile ruck, and then the next day we're thinking, it's probably going to be a nice recovery day or something like that. He sends us on a freaking death run. And his runs were miserable because he would always like shoot out to the front, and they need to get everybody to turn around and do like a little go round everybody up. And so you're thinking you're going to get up there and then, we're going to take a break. But as soon as you get there, they're going again. And so for the guys at the back, there was no rest, there was no break. And after the 12-mile ruck, everybody was already broke off, and he's just yelling at you the whole time and smoking us. IUW was one of those that will always stand out in my mind as just being like, is this going to be the Q course? Is this my life for the next 2 years? It was absolutely a kick in the nuts.
Yeah. That part I didn't get. I didn't have that. I think classes on one side of me and on the other side of me got that stupid stuff. I only remember the gates. Like your G, you're doing the gates. They sucked. It was the 12-mile ruck. People were just passing out and just down on the sides of the road on the last couple miles of the 12-mile ruck, and they're sticking IVs in them and shit and bringing them back to life. And but I don't remember them fucking with us outside of that. Maybe because it was like fucking 1,000 degrees outside or some shit like
Maybe
that.
that, and they always say the old cadre roulette. I mean, it really depends. The cadre is so depending on the mood that they're in that day or just their overall demeanor. I mean, there's certain cadre that you would just avoid like the plague because you knew it was going to be an issue if you had any interaction with them. Then there's other cadre that are like nurturing and helpful and like make you excited to be a Green Beret. but it's, man, it's so dependent, or at least it was. I'm sure it still is today as well. But
Yeah, I'm sure it still is. It's just different. Things change. Nothing remains the same. You even even a Green Beret is different than when we were in, and it was different 10 years before, and it's different. Some of the core traits are there, but people are different. Now, I bring all that up, right? All that bullshit. There's more. We could talk a full episode about how shitty IUW was, I think, and then we could call up some people and get some more stories that we've
yeah,
forgotten. Bottom line, terrible meat grinder, waste of talent for the regiment. And now we get to now, and you're like, is there anybody at SOCOM that's going, maybe we shouldn't have shit on all those people in the first phase of the Q course? And because there had to be 10,000 dudes that could have been Green Berets that they're like, nah, bye.
yeah. There's a
Because that shit doesn't exist in the course anymore. It's not there. And
yeah.
so all
It
those
just
dudes
makes
probably
you
would have made it.
wonder how many good dudes got selected out because of, stupid shit. Somebody could have got an injury, or I had a buddy. This is a story we like to tell in Beers and Breakdowns a few times. We had a buddy going through land nav in IUW, and awesome dude. And he was at one of the points. He set his rifle down, took his pack off, and he's at one of the points getting his next point and plotting his course. He's talking to a guy that came up there, another candidate, and the guy's like, "All right, see you later," and takes off. And then my buddy goes to get up and grab all his stuff, and he's looking around, and his rifle, his rubber ducky's gone. And he's like looking at it's nowhere to be seen. And he was like, "I knew that he took my rifle." He's like, "I remember when he walked up, he didn't have a rifle, and now he's clearly got a rifle. So he took his because obviously you need the rifle to pass. You can't just lose it." And so my buddy finished the course, found all of his points. And the way that we did it in IUW is there was like the cadre hut in the middle of a big field. And he snuck to the backside because when you finish, you put all your rifles on a pile. And he had to sneak in the backside, pull a rifle off of the pile, go back to the wood line, come around to the other side, and then turn in his scorecard. And this dude, we ended up we did language together. He's another first grouper. You actually might know him. First name's Jesse. But he was one of the greatest Green Berets I know. Like, this guy was a Charlie, went back and reclassed as a Delta. But if it wasn't for his quick thinking, like, he would have got shafted and he would have got dropped right then because he didn't have a rifle. So how many good dudes had something similar or something even more stupid happen to them that got selected out?
Well, yeah, that's you got to find a way to pass in that scenario. I don't know if I would have handled it like that. Especially at that time, like I was amped up coming into the course. Now, not as much as I was at the end of the course. I was a fucking gorilla at the end of the course. End of the course, I would have killed that dude. I would have caught up to him in whatever way he took off on and killed him in the woods. Beginning of the course, I'm not sure what I would have done. Probably fucking still killed him, but in a
Yeah.
different manner.
Probably would have
That
shit my
shit.
pants.
Well, yeah, that's crafty though. I mean, I would have
Yeah.
got that dude later. That dude would have not graduated. That for sure.
I
I
need
would
to
have.
talk to him and find out if he ever found out what happened to the dude, if he became a Green Beret or not.
Mm,
I like to think
I
karma
hope.
got him.
I hope not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope, hopefully he. Yeah. Hopefully somebody blackmailed him into something he didn't do and used evidence against him to. Um, so what is the draw for you to? You know, I've asked other guys about this. Be You're like pre-recruiting for regiment now. I feel like with social media how it is
Hmm.
because you guys, and now I'm starting to see a little bit from me and some of the other bigger accounts and things like that is we are all able to do things that the recruiters can't say and can't do, and we can't honestly capture they can't honestly capture the attention of today's youth, like, because we can put whatever the fuck we want online.
Right.
um I try to do it I respectfully and things like that, but that's the shit that's capturing people's attention, not these fucking boring ass videos. So
Yeah.
what to you is the draw of being at this stage of the pipeline?
Dude, I love it because I like to help other people out. I honestly do. And this is something that I realized as I was in. I can't remember if I was talking to you on the team room about this or somebody else, but we were at NTC at one point, and our camp was right on the other side of a fence from a major
Yeah,
battalion,
you said, yeah.
one of the big army ones. And we had to go over there. One of my teammates knew one of the platoon leaders or something over there, and we had to borrow something. I forget what it was. So we ride over in our razors, and it was like we got there and we meet up with them. They've got tanks, and before we knew it, a huge crowd had formed around us, right? Because they've been seeing us over the past few days. They see like we're going out at night, we're coming back early in the morning, we're in razors, we're in half uniforms, whatever. And so when we get over there, it's like all of a sudden this huge crowd just forms around us, and people are asking us about like, what is it like to be a Green Beret? How do you become a Green Beret and all this? And it was at that moment I realized like kind of the power that we have, because I didn't really have that when I was starting out. I only had one interaction with a Green Beret. He was my SF recruiter. And I remember just being in awe when I saw him. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I want to do that. And so when we were able to talk to those young kids and just I feel like a lot of them. I feel like if any one of those guys ended up going to selection, that would have been awesome. Just because from that interaction that we had. And so once we started this on YouTube, people started to reach out to us, and then we start getting the messages, be like, "Hey, I've been watching all your videos. I just signed up for selection." It's like, "Oh, that's awesome, dude. Keep us updated. Let us know how it goes." And then you get the ones who are like, "Hey, I just got back. I got selected. Thank you so much." And it's like every time somebody would do that, kind of selfishly, it's like that makes me feel good. I'm glad that I could have a little bit of part in that. And kind of like what you said also is, people don't really trust recruiters, even SF recruiters. My SF recruiters, they told me all the good stuff. They didn't tell me any of like kind of the negatives or the mundane aspects of the job. And I feel like that's something that people really respect with us, because we're 100% honest at the FNG Academy. We tell people like, look, the job's awesome. Best job I ever had. It's not always awesome. There are going to be times when you're like, what the hell am I doing here? When you're sitting in front of a computer for hours on end, day after day, and you're like, I went through all this training for this. But then you get to do something really cool where you're sitting there flying in a Black Hawk and your legs are hanging out over the edge or whatever. And you're like, this is awesome. This is really cool. So that's another thing is I love and I enjoy the fact that I'm able to help people earn or achieve their dreams and their goals, but also we're able to do it and be honest and be like, look, it's not for everybody. But if you can deal with this, you get a really big payoff on the other side. And so for us, that's kind of it. It's, honestly, it's like a selfish thing. It makes me feel good. It really does. A guy texted me the other day. He was in our mentorship program. One of the first guys, I started working with him probably 2 or so years ago, when he was still a civilian. I kept up with him, been friends. I'm a friend with him now. Kept up with him through his enlistment in the National Guard, him going to basic training, selection. He just graduated from SUT, and on Monday, so yesterday, he started MOS phase. And I was like, dude, that is awesome. I will be at your graduation because I know for a fact you're going to graduate. I'll be there, and so it makes me feel good. That's why we do this.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. It's interesting. You said, we can say whatever we want. But there is a lot of time in front of a computer. I spent my whole career, you know, in segments. Like, I don't want to sit at a computer. I don't want to be, I don't want to go to school. I'm going to go to the military. We went to the military. I get stationed at a fucking computer desk. I'm like, I'm going to selection. And you get there and I get hurt and I'm right back at a fucking computer. Like, it happens way, way more than you think it's going to. You're going to be working at the fucking work desk, making storyboards or con ops or op orders or some other bullshit, right? Even when you're not in charge, when you're just supporting training and shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Everybody
it's
thinks like
all
you're just gonna, if you're not deployed, you're gonna be at the range every day or like blowing up doors and doing all this. And it's like, it's a very small percentage. But then once you do it, though, it pays for itself. And a lot of the other BS that comes along with being a soldier in the regular army kind of goes away. You have to deal with some of it, but you have more say over the BS that you're dealing with. At least you're doing it kind of on your own accord because you're planning for your own mission or whatever the case is. But still, yeah, there are some times where you're just like beating your head up against the wall. It's like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now.
here's one I wanted to see if you've thought about. And I brought this up with, I don't know if it was Terminator or Infinite Grit. If you start adding up all of the prep influencers and micro influencers, right? Like, we got like 40 people ish. So you're going to have, and a lot of these guys coming in now are using some sort of prep program so that they leave no doubt, right?
Hmm.
So at a point, 10 years down the road, you're going to have a majority of the soldiers in group E6 to E8 that have been influenced or by some sort of Instagram prep program. If you don't really want to call it influencer or strength athlete or coach or whatever. And that's really crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Because everybody, that's how the internet is now. And I think special forces is way behind on utilizing it. Yeah, they got an Instagram page. Their Instagram page sucks.
Terrible.
Um, and they're the decisions they're making are based on people that are, and that's nothing wrong with this. They're just too fucking old. I'm too
Hmm.
fucking old. I'm having to learn
Hmm.
this shit, and I'm doing it 16 hours a day, and there's no catching up. There's no fucking way they're going to catch up. Um, and then once they make that decision, hey, we need to fucking hand this over to, Staff Sergeant so and so who's just coming in the door.
Yeah.
They'll probably be
And
better off.
it's interesting to see because you kind of see the shift now. So we're coming up in the FNG Academy on 5 years of doing this. And so when we started, 5 years isn't that long ago. There was pretty much zero social media footprint for SF as an organization, SF proper. Of course, there's people like us that had footprints, but the actual regiment organization or SWIX, the schoolhouse, had zero footprint. And then you start to see about all the issues with recruiting and all that. And it really does. It comes down to, the older generation really grabs onto that whole quiet professional motto, right? And it's like, yeah, quiet professional is great in certain circumstances. But if nobody knows about you, if nobody knows what you do, somewhere it's going to hurt, right? Because people don't know to even want that job because they don't know what the job does. You look at the SEALs, how many books and movies and stuff do the SEALs have? I know it's the cliche to bring up the SEALs, but they're doing a great job at marketing themselves. And I don't know their SEAL numbers or anything like that, but I bet that the SEALs are not having the same kind of recruiting crisis or whatever the SF is right now because people know about it and the kids they're growing up and they aspirationally want to become a SEAL. And Green Berets do some really cool stuff. But I remember getting out thinking like, oh, I was a Green Beret, like I'm gonna be able to get a job doing whatever I want. And people would ask me like, oh, so what'd you do? And it's like, oh, it's a Green Beret. And they're like, what is that? The people I would either get, is that like a SEAL or is that like a Ranger? And I'd be like, well, yeah, kind of, but and so then you got to get into that conversation.
I have when I do speak in public, I hit them hard with two jokes, and then I get into my serious stuff. The first one, all right, and this is a fundraiser for raising money for Green Beret Foundation, right? And I'll go, all right, honestly, who here knows what a Green Beret is? And then like, there's 150 people in there. Like 30 people raise their hand. I'm like, all right, all right, all right. How many people know what Navy SEALs are? Everybody puts their hand up. And I go, great, perfect. Green Berets are like Navy SEALs, but for men. That joke kills, kills, and it gets the point across where I don't have to explain anything, and I get my
Yeah,
stance out right away. I get a few boos from some Navy veterans here and
of
there,
course.
but it gets the point across. I don't have to explain anything, so you can use that one
I
in the
will.
future
I'll
if you
keep
like
that. I'll
it.
keep that. But so I
You're
mean,
right.
it's interesting to see now that they are starting to utilize it a bit more. Kind of, I think the old guard for one is starting to cycle out. But also they're just realizing they have to do something. And I think the Rangers have actually done a really good job on their social media marketing over the past few years. Some of their videos that the Rangers are putting out are like, fuck, dude, like I want to be a Ranger. That gets me motivated. And then SF is, unfortunately, they're doing it so terribly. I don't know if it's actually even helping. It's just a bunch of like, sergeant majors or lieutenant colonels or something just sitting there doing a little boring podcast. And so I'm interested to see now. I've seen that there's been a more of a push. Some of these social media uh, content creators, I guess, are starting to officially work with uh, special forces and also with SWIC. Unfortunately, sometimes they choose the wrong individuals. But they're coming around to it. So I think that that's actually a positive sign, and we're waiting. We're ready to help out. We just did that documentary with 20th Group, and I mean that thing was phenomenal. And I think that I've actually spoken with the chief over at 20th Group, and he said they've got a ton more interest now after that documentary that we did, because I mean we go in there and we show it. It's a raw, unfiltered look at what it actually takes to become a Green Beret, at least in the early phases. And I think it really connects with people, and you get to see that struggle. For me, that's what it was. I wanted to go through the hardship. I wanted to test myself and see if I actually had what it took. And when you're watching that, you're like, man, this is difficult. So for those people that were like me, they're going to want to reach out and try to do that. But right now, the only thing they have to go off of is all the stories of buds that they hear. So everybody wants to be a SEAL.
Yeah. Yeah. That, gosh, you guys did more people tell me about that video that you guys did than anything else. Oh, I saw the FNG Academy video.
So I'm glad that there's an old dude at my gym. He found out about it, and almost every day I see him, he comes up to me now and asks me about that video and about like the stuff that those guys are going through.
It's just well done. Modern, everything's better. The because we had when we went through, it was 2 weeks in hell. It was the study guide, right? And that's pretty grainy compared to now. And you're like looking at stuff, but now it's all very clear. I like what you guys are doing. I am looking at my stuff, and I'm liking the still images, even to the point where I'm like, I need to take a photography class, or at least get my wife to teach me. She's a photography major. I'm like, hey, can you teach me about some things here, because I'm like in the still images, and I can take a still image and I can write. I can sit and I can write out, so what are we seeing here? What's going on here? Why is it important in the path, and all these other things? And I can just break down. So that's the way I'm going. So I'm trying to come up with a concept for that, for impressions and views and things like that. But somebody messaged me the other day, and then I blocked them right away. Because I was like, don't get involved, Nick. They said people who make money off of SFAS prep programs are cringe. And I was like, block. I don't need that. You don't, because I feel like people unfollow me, and then they'll come back and follow me again. I was like, I don't need this person. I don't want to convert this person. No, if you're going to take time out of your day to come and hit me with that message, I don't need you in my life. But I so we got quiet professional, right? We got the whole generation says, oh, nobody needs to be talking about this stuff. And we've got these, I think, overinflated recruiting numbers, which I think they're much worse than they actually are, is what's actually coming out. I think they're way worse, because the guys in group are telling us that there's nobody in group, really.
Yeah.
There's nobody walking around. The two guys are going out the door for every one coming in. That's not what the command is saying right now. They're saying we're fully staffed, which can't be true. So, and then we're hanging on to these old ways of thinking, and then you can't talk about this, and that's people who make money off this is cringe. And I go, is it cringe to like make people healthy, like to be a gym, to be a personal trainer? Because this is what they are, is personal
Mm-hmm.
trainers. So, and then they're going to go on to serve the country, and then they're going to get their benefits of being a veteran, and most of everybody now uses that college and goes to college, gets a degree, goes back into society, helps society. Like, what are we thinking about? Are we thinking about just your feelings on what
Yeah.
people should be talking about in certain units, if you even ever served in those units? And maybe you did, and you're like, I don't want to talk to you. That shit's over. So are we just thinking about that, your little outdated information, or are we talking about all the fucking benefits downstream of this person getting selected?
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. People, they don't look at the bigger picture like that. Everybody likes to think like, oh, when I went through, the whole like, it was less hard class, it was real. Now it's soft these days. And so one thing I have noticed, and we've been dealing with a lot of stuff like that, is for one, it's a lot of the older SF guys. They despise it. They hate that anybody is saying that, oh, I was a Green Beret or anything like that on social media. They think it should be like freaking the CIA, like everybody's secretive, and the organization will die if that happens, right? Um, and then the other part that I've noticed is we actually had an issue a couple years ago where these people kept started leaving all these negative reviews on some of our products, talking about where we're charging candidates like way too much money and all this stuff. And we started to look into it. And we actually found out who they were, and they were all SFAS cadre. There was 3 guys, and they were SFAS cadre. And we reached out to them and like, what are you guys doing? Like, for first off, the products that we were selling, the margins were so slim. There was no price gouging or anything like that. But then also we're talking to them, like, you guys realize like we're helping you. We're helping get the recruits and getting the people into SFAS. And if it wasn't for us, you're not going to have as big of a pool or as talented of a pool, because we're helping the right people find their way to you. And it's like, and also one day you're going to get out and you're going to be trying to start a business or something like that. And you're going to realize that, when it's your own brothers that are the ones that are the biggest protagonists and like talking shit about you, that's the one that cuts the deep, right? What they say, a brother's blade is, I forget what the saying is.
Hopefully they'll be on my show going, I was wrong.
Yeah,
I
right.
was I was an idiot too, and now I'm not. I've seen the light.
And
Hopefully
the
that's
funny
the
thing
case.
was, is we found out one of them was running one of the like the SF meme pages too. And it's like, you're kind of doing a similar thing, just behind the anonymity. And I don't know. It sucks, but honestly, it's something we got to deal with, and it's something that's changing though, so that's good. The whole climate behind it's changing, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. I think that it's needed for sure within the regiment.
Do you know how much money? And I don't either, but it's an exorbitant amount of money. The Army fucking wastes send people to selection and they fail the PT test or fail in all these different phases and all this other
Yeah,
shit. Like nobody fucking bats an eye to that shit.
yeah,
But God forbid a candidate wants to spend a couple $100 on a personal trainer, because that's what it is. It's a coach. It's a personal trainer. It's a coach, um, to get them through. Now you can come on here. People can debate me. People are gonna do whatever the fuck they want to do with their money. If they see something that they think will benefit them, good. An SF guy will find a way to graduate, no matter what. Like if he's got to go in the back of the pack and pick up a rubber duck rifle and then sneak back, low crawl back into
yeah.
formation and then turn it in, he's going to do that. Now, some of the shit that current cadre have messaged me about some of my guests, I'm like, I don't see how that's true. Can you prove that? Because if you can, we can get some tabs revoked. Oh, you can't prove it? Don't message me
Right.
anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's funny is one of the other arguments that we had from that group of cadre was that we're selling a program teaching people how to pass selection. And I was like, well, hold on. No, none of us, not myself, not Terminator, nobody out there is selling a program on how to pass selection. All we're doing is preparing you. For us, we don't deal with anything physical. For us, it's like, hey, selection's very mental. Let me help you get in the right mindset to give yourself the best chance of success, or to figure out maybe if this isn't the job for you. Terminator and all them, they're helping people get physically prepared. You still have to go and do the hard work. You still have to pass selection on your own. And so there's no secrets that we could sell anybody to be like, oh, guaranteed pass or your money back. Like, that's just stupid. And so that's the other part of it too, is like, people still have to go and get selected on their own. There's no easy button for it. So the fact that people are upset talking about like, you can't be giving out these secrets, they're not secrets. There's so much information out there anyways. You still got to do the hard work. So
Absolutely. Kevin and John and Steven at Need a Nutrition Coach and 18 Alpha, like selection is so much easier if you're a stud. So much fucking easier. You still could be a non-select. You still could go the whole time and not make it, and because you're a douchebag.
exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. That's one of the main things I tell people. Don't be a dick. Like, you have to realize you have to be able to get along with people. You don't have to be friends with people. There's people on my team. Like, we'd butt heads all the time, but we have a mutual respect for one another, and we work together. Just because we're not going to go and, hang out by ourselves on the weekends with each other, like, it doesn't matter. You just have to be able to get along with people. Just don't be a dick all the time.
You know, can't be yourself. I think I said on yours, like, yeah, you might not be able to be yourself right away. You might have to warm people up to that rosy demeanor of yours.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's in life as well. Like you can't sit down with the first Thanksgiving with the new in-laws like it's an episode of The Bear and drive the car through the front wall of the house,
Just get hammered.
just throwing rolls and shit. You can't do that. Oh man, which reminds me, I got to start season 4 of The Bear. I'm excited. Um, I don't know, man. There's a lot that goes into it. I think net benefit overall. Are some people abusing the system? Probably. Are some people getting VA benefits that shouldn't get them? Fuck, probably also. Are there people underusing all of the resources available to them? Yeah, they're on that side too. So it's fucking everything is perspective. Like if your perspective is coming from over there with limited information, then maybe we can bring you into the light. Maybe not. I don't know. As we're
Yeah.
not going to make everybody happy. Hopefully we can show people that it's a fucking really cool and rewarding job, and also hopefully the leadership in charge right now doesn't run the train right into the ground. But I've said that's hard. I draw a hard line when things start getting too difficult questions to answer. I go, I'm on the veteran side. You guys deal with that bullshit. Like that's
Right.
your
Yeah.
fucking problem. I got enough people over here like making bad decisions and ruining their lives or other people's lives. So I got to deal with. So you guys deal with that problem. Bye.
You know, what's funny is also the people that reach out with questions like, oh, you were a Green Beret. Like, tell me what's going on. Like, are we actually going to war with Iran? And like all this stuff is like, I was a Green
Yep.
Beret. Yeah, but I don't know any. I had a lady at my old work when I got out. She came up to me one day and I had never spoken to this lady. And she's like, you're in the military, right? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, so I heard that Donald Trump is going to send out a text to everybody tomorrow night to meet up somewhere. I forget where it was. Everybody was going to meet up and they were all going to like rise up and revolt. And she was like, is that true? And I'm like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like, no, I don't think it's true. But also like, why is she coming to me with this? Like we're in this secret society where we know like the president's getting on the horn. He's like, hey, Kurt, I'm going to send a text to everybody. I need you to lead a cell down there in Florida for me. Like, I don't know what's going on. I've been out of this for
Not
so long.
even, yeah, not even signal. Yeah, I laugh. There's a great misconception about what actually happens. Unless
Right.
you have 4 stars on your chest, you don't know what the fuck's going on
Right.
at
Yeah, like
all.
we might be Green Berets, but we're still just cogs in the wheel. It's just a different wheel than the regular army. But yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on up at those levels.
No, absolutely not. So, what else you got going on, man? Like, is it just FNG Academy all the time, or what else do you do?
So I'm actually trying to keep myself busy. Right now, I'm in the middle of a huge renovation. We're converting my garage into a mother-in-law suite. But as far as professionally, like I've got a few rental properties, which is one of the best things I did when I got out of the army. So I used my VA loan and I bought a fourplex, so a quadplex, so a 4 unit townhome. It's the biggest you can buy, up to 4 units with a VA loan, and that kind of started. And so having those rentals is a game changer for me. And that's another thing that we always try to tell people. You had mentioned it earlier. Is a lot of people underutilize the benefits that you get in the military, and there's a ton. Like people, all the programs that you have access to. Just because you're a veteran or because you're in the military, it's absolutely ridiculous. And nobody taught me any of these things when I was younger, and so the more I could spread information about what I know about, because there's a ton that I don't even know about. But just man, with all the schooling benefits, the healthcare benefits, the VA loans and everything that you can get, small business loans and all that, it's absolutely wild. So I do that, and then for fun, I've also got a podcast that I do with one of my former teammates. We're both huge Formula One fans, and so we've got an F1 podcast that we do.
Just completely uh, off to the side. We're doing racing cars. That's pretty
Yeah.
fun.
There, yeah, and him and I, we've kind of traveled. We've been down to Mexico City for races, down to Brazil for races. Like we go to a race every year, and it's just one of those random things. Like we wound up on the team, and we both like racing, and then so we kept up. And he's still to this day one of my best friends. And so yeah, that's something that we do.
It's awesome, man. At least you get out of the community a little bit instead of being fully in all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it though, the whole FNG side, because it allows me to kind of keep a toe in or a foot in that world. And for somebody like us, like we train for so many years to become a Green Beret, and then you get in and it's like the highlight, and you're like, this is awesome, but eventually it does come to an end, voluntarily or involuntarily. It will come to an end, and it's going to leave a hole most likely. And so for a while, when I was just in the corporate world, like I was so unfulfilled. I had a job, I was making decent money, but it just sucked. It wasn't something that I was proud of. It wasn't something that I really worked for to achieve. It gave me no fulfillment. It was just somewhere I went every day and just took all of my time from me. And then once I started out with the FNG Academy and we started kind of growing this, I was able to kind of like get back in a little bit with the military world. And it was like, this is cool. This is the stuff that I actually really enjoy. And then it was when we did that 20th group documentary, it's like we're sitting there and we're in a team room again and going through briefings again and just hanging out with team dudes. And I was like, I forgot how much I missed this and how much I absolutely needed this. And so it was awesome. And so then I started like looking into, other things I could do. So now I talked to you before, I went to selection for, it's kind of like it's called the Florida State Guard Special Missions Unit. It's kind of like a disaster relief or hurricane recovery for the most part. There's a lot of other mission sets that they do, but it's mostly all former team guys, in one aspect or another, whether Army, Navy, whatever. Um, and so just being around that group of guys again it's phenomenal. And again, I'm being able to still stay in that world and stay relevant. And it's one of those things like when I got out and there was that hole that I was telling you about, I found finally a way to fill those holes. So I'm just so fulfilled right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I I was kind of a little late getting up to Fort McCoy for the one, and I'm just in. I when I drive, I'm in a tank top and shorts and flip flops, right? And and they're all. I walk in the classroom and they're all in uniform. I was like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And they're looking at me because I when I joined the army, I was like 170 pounds. I'm like 240 pounds of, but like I look like I mean business, right? But I'm
Yeah.
really not. Like I'm really like silly and everything. But my one buddy's like, Jesus Christ. It's like, man, I don't have the life anymore. I don't have to keep up with it. I can get my 8 hours of sleep on workout in and eat my
Yeah.
protein now. But I was like, I just want to say, guys, I really appreciate this. And, and they're like, we want to be respectful and that. It's like, no, uh, don't take my demeanor for in front of other people. Like I'm in front of you guys. This is cool, and things like that. But I'm just so happy I'm like, it's like the Miss America. I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah, that's how I was too, dude. Like we're sitting there, I'm just like, this is awesome, man. I'm like a kid in a candy store again. And then like the whole time you've got their chief down there. He's like, so we could do a tryout one contract if you want to join the guard. And I'm like, I'm good, chief. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I think I could do another push. I could do it again.
Yeah. I told I think the sergeant major said, he's like, have you ever thought of doing SFRE? I said, if you can get me a code 4 on my DD214 back in the guard to do SFRE, I'll sign right now. And he's like, and he looks at the recruiter, and the recruiter's like, no.
Yeah, it's even that, like the SFRE, I'd go back just to do that. It was a lot of fun. And again, you're getting to help out guys too. And I don't know how they run theirs. I'm sure it's probably pretty similar to the way 20th group does, but um they were, I don't want to say nurturing, but they weren't there to kick candidates out. If a candidate was struggling, and if you've seen the documentary, there's a guy that was really struggling in the water and he comes up and the cadre's talking to him. He's like, you can quit if you want to. He's like, but you just swam all the way over here. So clearly you can swim. Your issue is you're panicking when you're trying to tread water. And so the cadre was sitting there talking him through it. And he was giving him options. He was like, look, why don't you just swim in small circles? And so, they weren't there to kick people out. They were there to help people develop and grow as a person to see then if they had the potential to move on. And I think they were able to do that because the way SFRE is, they're civilians. They don't have any contracts. It's a kind of no harm, no foul. If you get there and you don't pass, you don't have a contract, so you just go back home. And so for them, they had kind of more leeway to be kind of nurturing and just helping people out and helping mentor these guys. And like I was saying before, that's the stuff that I love. I love being able to watch somebody grow and kind of get the most out of themselves and realize their own potential. Because we all, mentally, I feel like the way that we're wired is our brains are accustomed to comfort. And so the minute you start to feel some sort of discomfort, your brain's like, like this is scary, like get me out of here. But the body can go through so much more. And that's something like you and I have experienced, like going through selection and all that. I'm sure, if you're like me, when I got there, I was kind of like, I think I can do this. But every time you push yourself to the limit and you succeed, your threshold just it goes farther and farther, or that line in the sand. And so that's one thing that I got out. Probably the biggest benefit I got personally was going through SF and all that, was I got to realize that I'm capable of so much more, and the self-confidence that came with that. So when I'm able to show that to other people, I absolutely love that. And so the whole SFRE thing, if anybody's interested in becoming a Green Beret, or even seeing if they have what it takes, find an SFRE. They'll let you come down. They'll even, you get to stay for free. You get free food while you're there. It's awesome. It's like a no harm, no foul. Go try it out.
I just thought of, maybe we can bounce this back and forth, just a way also of framing what it is, right? I see ads for Tough Mutters, and the first word that comes to my mind is "that's gay." I
Yeah.
go, I'm like, because no, there's nothing wrong with being gay. If you're gonna hate on me in the comments, I don't care. Um, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the word I
It's
use.
a different kind of gay.
Yeah, it's a military gay. So
Yeah, there you go.
I see those, and I'm like, no. But we've done all these things, and we're like, we were striving for something where instead of you just showing up on the weekend, oh, this is really hard, and then you're going back to your desk job. There's no payoff. It's just like that is the payoff. All right. Well, what if you went and did a Tough Mudder where they offer you a job at the end? There is something you're competing for a job offer, and that's kind of what this is. Like you think you can do these things. Well, you can do this, and then there's a chance at the end where they offer you a job where you can actually go and try out to do these things and things like that. Maybe that's an idea I'm going to try and work on or develop. But like you said, pushing your body, you can push your body further and further and further. I think we find out pretty early on, and Major Decker said this at selection when I was there, and he probably said it when you were there too, is your mind will give up long before your body. And we find out rather early in our career that, fuck, I can just push my body forever. It's all in my head. The the quitting and the giving up and everything. And that's the one, is just keep pushing past all of these barriers in your mind, because somehow we always had more energy. I remember after they smoked the shit out of us at Sear, and then we were just like hadn't eaten in days. And man, they liberated us, and somehow fucking more energy. Oh, we
Yeah.
gotta go I got energy to go get food now. Oh
Yeah.
fuck, I didn't have any energy back there, but magically, and the cadre are laughing. They're like, "Oh, now you guys are able to get up and run. What the
Yeah.
fuck?" And they're making fun of us and stuff. Um, and it really is, after a certain point, just training your mind to just say, "Okay, I give up. I'm just do whatever you got to do, and I'll be here to sort out the mental mess when you're done."
Yeah, right. And it's funny, it's kind of interesting. I just had Dr. David Walton on the team room. And so if people don't know who he is, he's TF Voodoo on Instagram and the Green Beret subreddits. But he was the OIC, or the officer in charge at SFAS, for a long time. He's very data driven. So he's like the type that will like dive into the analytics and the numbers of what leads to success and what doesn't. But he had an interesting take, and it's something I'd said before, but hearing it from his side kind of validates it. And he was talking about how SFAS as a whole, specifically Team Week, it's kind of this it's a mental challenge disguised as a physical challenge. Right. And so people think they're like, oh, I have to, go there and it's just physically going to be this suck fest. Well, it is. But the reason for that is because they're not assessing your physical prowess at SFAS. Right. You're expected to show up and be strong and have endurance. Right. they want to break you down to a point where normal, rational thinking people would quit, right? Because your body is to a point where it's so beat up and it's so done that now your mind is just screaming for you to stop. So they're looking for the people that have the ability to override that kind of emergency response in their mind and continue to go on. And he was like, so I would have my cadre during team week. When you see a guy that's under the down pilot, he's just sucking. Life is just terrible for that person at that moment. He's like, I would have my cadre walk up and be like, hey, what do you think about that candidate or something like that? And he was saying that because at that moment, you're so physically beat that you can't, like, mentally, you don't have the power to kind of put on this facade or this mask of who you want to be. And that's where you're going to get somebody at their most raw. And that's where you get the true answers at. And that's when the selection and the assessment really starts, is when your body is completely destroyed. Because, you know, like we said, it's mostly mental. You know, if I had to put numbers on it, 90 to 95% of SFAS is mental. And so that's what we focus on, is getting people in the right mindset and helping people train their mind and just getting to the point where they can override those pain response systems or whatever that their body shoots up to their mind.
Talk about, selection and the Q course and graduation and team life and deployments and all these other things as if we just throw them away. And they're very difficult. These things are these are bleed from the eyes difficult tasks to accomplish at times. And we discount them once we get to group because everybody's a Green Beret. Everybody worked just as hard to get there and accomplish the same things. And they're oftentimes, these dudes are much tougher than you are. And someday you'll be there and there'll be new guys coming in and vice versa and things like that. And then it all stops. And we've discounted all of the hard things. We remember subconsciously all of the pain and anguish and sacrifice that it took to get there, but we don't remember at the forefront. It's always back here. It's like this nagging feeling that's following us around. And then it's over, and life disappoints. It's very disappointing once you get out. There's nothing to compare. You can't compare anything in your direct thinking to what you did, even if you're ready for it to end. And then you're like, why am I sad? Why am I depressed? Well, you've got this nagging feeling back here of accomplishment and sacrifice and strife and depression and anger and hate and everything that's following you around, and you don't know what it is because it's all those things that you had to either use or suppress to get to where you are. And now you are at the one place you didn't want to be. You're back at a fucking desk listening to an idiot who's like doesn't know what they're doing, or you think they don't because you got a bad attitude. You're like, what does this person even know? Like they don't know, and you can't justify. And that's like I think where we go so far off the rails is we don't recognize like the enormity of the things that we did. Not saying it's great or we're better than anyone or anything like that. It's that we put ourselves through these things and then we don't even recognize them when we get there because it's just normal. And then we get out and we don't understand why we can't fit in or we can't adjust to this. I wouldn't say downgrade, but it's a completely different life. It's not the same. It's not even the same. And it's kind of a weird path I took to get to how do we deal with it when it ends from your perspective.
Dude, I'm still trying to figure that out. That for me was one of the things where when I got out, I had a lot of things I wanted to do on the outside. And the point when I decided to get out, it was during that career rotation that you and I did. So leading up
It
to
was in
that,
17.
it wasn't 17. Yeah. So leading up to that, this is before you got to the company, we were slotted to go to Afghanistan. And then the whole thing popped off with Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, and tensions were high. And so our Afghanistan trip got taken from us, and they're like, you guys are going to go sit in Korea for 6 months. So that deployment for our team, and I'm sure for the other teams that were there, the whole company that was there, was started off as frustration because like we were supposed to be somewhere else right now. So everybody had kind of like a bad taste in their mouth. And so it was coming up for me to reenlist or get out at that point. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to keep chasing this deployment and reenlist again for it and then it not happen, you know, because there's other things I want to do. And so I remember one of my teammates was like, "You're not going to deploy. Like, how is that going to affect you in the future?" I was like, "Man, I don't care. I'm not. I was over it at that point. I had chased it so long, and it just something kept happening where it would fall through. Where I was like, you know what, I'm over it at this point." And so then I ended up getting out, and you know, everything was cool for a little bit. And then I started to realize kind of what you were saying, like just this. I've always been a very positive and happy-go-lucky person, and like very energetic and all. But I just started to have this like feeling like what is going on, like what am I doing now? I took time off when I got out because I just had a young kid and I wanted to spend time with her because I never got to when I was in, and I ended up taking about a year and a half off of doing nothing, just staying at home. And at first that was real cool, but that quickly got to be like I had way too much free time to think and all this. And so I was like trying to find something to fill that hole. I actually, it's funny you talk about the Tough Mudder. I went with some buddies and we did a Spartan race, and I was like, oh, this will be fun because it's like a physical challenge. And so it was my buddies that were there. And then I was just so frustrated the whole time because we're doing like carries and they kept dropping the buckets. And I'm just like, pick the shit up. Like I'm going in like drill sergeant mode at that point. Like, pick that shit up and let's move out. And they're like falling out and dropping shit. And then I was realizing, I was like, when did I become so angry? And so it wasn't until I found FNG Academy once we started that, where I started to get a little bit of that back, because then I was kind of like one toe in and one toe out. At least I had a little bit of, you know, military adjacent stuff that I was doing. So as far as finding that hole, I think that's why there's so many like veteran groups and stuff. I feel like, you know, you can you can't identify as much with people that haven't been through what you went through. And so when you find people like that that have also been through it, there's kind of like that immediate bond a little bit. Is as cheesy as it looks from the outside, I feel like that is honestly it's kind of therapeutic to just get together with military friends every now and then. We just had an ODA reunion up in Washington last month. Best time of my life. It was absolutely phenomenal. The whole team most of the team got back together. So as far as filling that hole, for me, it's come by finding other things to do, mainly that were somewhat close to the tied with the military. But on top of that, just other challenges. I've done a couple marathons. So the train up process for that and actually doing those that was kind of therapeutic, kind of getting yourself back in that mental darkness, that suck that you find yourself in when you're going through like SFAS and all this. I started doing adventure races, which is awesome. I did a 28-hour adventure race, and that was the closest I had ever been to like SFAS or SUT style exhaustion and just being completely dead and droning when you're on mile or like hour 24, 25 of this adventure race, which is just a long land navigation race. And so I found things like that to kind of fill that hole. But it's hard. I mean, you're never really going to find a one for one replacement. I don't think you can just find little hits that kind of hold you over for a little bit longer, I guess.
Yeah. Shitty analogy here, but oof, it's a lot like drugs, you know. What a
Yeah.
drug and what do addicts get on when they get off of drugs? Methadone.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know.
You just find
So
another
there
drug.
you gotta wean yourself off. I isolated myself here in Wisconsin away from everybody. I had nothing. Nobody was I'm far from first group. There's no GBs here. I had no friends. Job sucked and things like that. And you just ugh. And now, and like you said, you know, you're always positive, and happy go lucky, and then you get negative. I was like, I don't know what I was. I was intense, and then more intense, and then I got out, and I tried to keep that up, and that didn't stay there, and then I just got really depressed.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, drinking a lot all the time sounds great. So, and now I'm just positive, oh God, as much as I can be all the time, and I'm just much happier with the way things are. But I don't drink anymore, which is a bummer
Right.
because I got a lot of booze over there, just so
Yeah,
much
I
booze.
see your like little stories that you put up, and like that's a ton of bottles. These guys got a nice collection going up there.
Hey, hey, not and this goes for you or anybody else, you know, any other the soft community. if you got my number and you're in southeastern Wisconsin, you come out, I'll buy you a drink. And there's some pretty good stuff up there. Uh, and yeah, it's an open bar. I got great prices too. I'll let you run a tab and you never have to close it. So what started the whole process, man? Were you an X-ray or regular Army before this?
Oh man. So uh, to fully comprehend, I think we got to go back a little
Oh,
bit farther.
we got to go even all the way back.
We do. So for me, this was probably 2006, or sometime around then. I was in college and it's just things, I just was kind of working a dead end job. I was going to school, but I was just going through the motions. I didn't really know what my plan was after school. I was working at a tire shop, and so I'd always had an interest in cars and mechanics and stuff. But then I'm looking around at the older mechanics at the shop, and they were all just like these crusty, salty, disgruntled dudes. And I was like, I don't want to be that when I get older. And just things weren't going that well for me. And at this point, I was partying all the time. I was out of shape. It wasn't good. And I remember one day we moved from one house to another house, and that day, just something about it. I think everything was boiling up to a point where I was like, I need to get my shit together. And when we moved that day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop. I used to smoke cigarettes a lot. I was like, I'm going to stop smoking cigarettes. I'm going to start exercising, and I'm going to start eating cleanly. And all of this took place the day that I moved. It was like a clean break. I started fresh at this new house. And so I started running. And I remember the first time we had a half-mile loop in my neighborhood. I couldn't even do a quarter mile around there trying to run. But the more I kept at it, the longer I'd run. And then I'm running laps around there. Then I'm running out of the neighborhood. And I started to find like I really enjoyed like chasing these like challenges and like doing things that were somewhat difficult. And then I'm pretty sure it was 2007. HBO came out with the show Generation Kill. Actually, I got the book back here. So HBO came out with that show, and it was like one of those moments, like you always see, like those kind of cliche moments in TV or cartoons where like this light bulb like turns on. Legitimately, as soon as that show came on, it was like a light bulb came on for me, and I saw the. If you haven't seen the show, it's about this Marine Recon Division. They were kind of the tip of the spear in the Iraq in the early days, and it just showed like the struggle that they went through, and the brotherhood and the bond was the big thing between the guys in the unit. And for some reason when that came on, I was like, that's it, I'm doing that. And it still took a few years. I was still in college, and I was trying to kind of appease my mom. She didn't wasn't down with the whole military thing. I had a long-term girlfriend at the time, so I graduated college, and I started working, and still like this thing. I'd wake up thinking about going to the military. I'd think about it all day. I'd go to sleep thinking about it. And I was like, you know what? I'm not getting any younger. I need to do something about this. My girlfriend, or my now wife, had just gotten pregnant at the time too. And so I went and I was like, I have to do something. So I went and I started talking to a recruiter, and I wound up enlisting as a 68 whiskey. So combat medic. I thought in my mind, this was going to be this life-changing challenge. Like in my mind, I'm thinking Full Metal Jacket when they're going to basic training and like just getting their ass kicked and all this. And I was like, I want that. I get to basic training at Fort Sill, the same place you went, I think, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is this? It was not the experience I was thinking it was going to be. It wasn't challenging at all. It wasn't what I was looking for. I was like, well, maybe when I get to AIT for medic down in San Antonio, it'll be different. That was academic. That wasn't like a physical challenge either. It was all an academic challenge. I just got out of college, so I knew how to do that. That was good. And I was like, well, when I get to my unit, then that'll be the challenge. I'll deploy and all this. And I get to Fort Riley, Kansas, 1st Infantry Division. And my unit had just come back from Afghanistan, and there was no deployments on the books there. And everybody in the unit was just like disgruntled and out of shape at this point. And most of them were on their way out, anyways. And I got there and I was like, this isn't like, I was motivated. I wanted to get and like prove myself and see what I was worth, or see what I could do, and it just didn't happen. And then one day it was like I was at my lowest. I was going through a depression at this point. I was like, I enlisted. This is not the career I wanted. I'm going to get out with nothing to show for it. And one day I was on base and I was leaving the library, and I saw the Special Forces recruiting truck. It was this F-350 dually with a wrap on it with a dude in a ghillie suit. And I saw that truck, and this was a Friday, and I was like, again, another light bulb. I'm going to do that. And I went home that weekend. I watched 2 Weeks in Hell probably twice, and I was like, I'm definitely doing that. Then I got to work on Monday morning. We had a motor pool formation every morning. The whole battalion would line up, and it was like it meant to be, because that just happened to be the day that the Green Beret recruiter came to our motor pool formation and was like, "Hey, we're holding an event tonight. If you guys want to come learn about SF, come by the office." And I was like, everything was like lined up, boom, 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 back to back. And I was like, this is a sign. And so that afternoon, I started wanting to be SF on a Friday. Monday afternoon, I go and I sit through their brief and I sign my volunteer statement for selection that day. So over the span of a weekend, I went from not knowing what to do with my life to being like, I'm going to be a Green Beret. And I signed up for selection. It was like 3 months out, which probably not the recommended amount of time because I wasn't in the best shape at the time. But one benefit that that did is it gave me a hard time, a hard stop. I had 3 months to get in shape, and I used that as motivation. And I worked my ass off because I couldn't do pull ups. That was my weakness. I couldn't do one dead hang pull up, like a clean dead hang pull up. And I think the standard was 8 at the time. And I worked my ass off, and I got to SFAS. The PT test for me was the biggest like source of nervous energy because I was so like I have to get past these pull-ups. And I remember when I got to my 8 or whatever, just this wave of just elation came over me. But yeah, so I worked my ass off. I hit all the standards, and then I went through, and the rest is kind of history, as they say.
When is this? When is this?
I went to selection in January of 2013.
He's 13. Okay. So and then you would have started the course right away. So I went in January of 12 and September of 12. Um, it's funny. Like, yeah, for selection, I hurt myself first time, and then
Oh yeah.
it was miserable cold, and then it was miserable hot.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
only differences between. I don't remember doing pull-ups though. I don't remember a whole hell of a lot. Just pieces here and there. I remember it fucking sucked,
Yep.
and then there's huge stretches of events that I remember, and then it's real choppy. Like people will say stuff, and I go, "Oh yeah," because I forgot about running everywhere until I
Yeah.
went to this SFRE. I was like, oh, we did have to run everywhere. That sucked. That
Yeah.
fucking sucked. Um, so you're 68 whiskey at Fort Riley, Kansas, which is 5 hours north of Fort Sill, and
Probably.
it's only slightly better than Fort Sill. And that the reason it's slightly better is because K State is right there.
Yeah. Right in
So there's at
Manhattan.
least something fun to do when on the weekends. Where at Sill, it just sucks all the time.
I didn't live there. I lived in Junction City on the south side of the
Okay.
base, where the only thing that people did on the weekends was meth, I think. It was like a huge meth area. That was an absolute terrible time in my life. But me and my wife were just talking the other day, like some of our fondest memories came from there, just from being young in the military, just figuring out life. It was a shitty situation, but that shared struggle, it just made things better, I guess.
Oh God, I'd be hard pressed to get a good one out of. I was watching somebody else's show the other day, and they said your first unit's where you're going to make the most friends and the best memories. And I said,
No.
bullshit. Fuck. You didn't go to Fort Sill or Fort Polk or
Right.
Fort Irwin, did you? Holy fuck.
Well, and that's the other thing for me is I kind of, again, it was like non-standard. I got to my unit, and that whole part of like getting into that depression took place quick because I saw like real quick there was nothing going on in that unit, and the amount of the people, the quality and caliber of the people that were there, there was standouts here and there, but by and large, it was not a group I wanted to be involved with. So I got to there, and I think I signed into my unit in August, late July, or or maybe August, I think. And it was 2.5, 3 months. I think it was the end of September, early October when I signed up for selection. So I wasn't there for long. I had to get out of there immediately. And then I went to selection, came back, and then I was out of there. I was only in Fort Riley for a total time of 10 months before I
Mm.
PCS to brag. So I got out of there. And after selection in January, my unit released me to work with the recruiters. So I was only technically on the books for that unit from August through January. Luckily, I had a super supportive sergeant major. He was real big on guys going to selection and moving on. And so he signed off and allowed me to get released from that unit. But I know other guys have horror stories of their units like pushing back or punishing them in certain ways. I got super lucky. So I wasn't even there for the full 12 months that you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I forget his name, but you got to work with because the recruiter before was a CA guy, had a real thick, real weird accent. Um, and then it switched out because our recruiter did uh, Leavenworth, Riley, and Sill, and he would rotate in between there. So we had the same recruiter because we were at the same time, and that guy was a stud. So yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been a blast to get released because I had to figure out my own shit. I got selected, and there's nobody on Fort Sill that's in the same boat. Like
Yeah.
everybody that goes fails from Fort Sill. So, and from my battalion, there was one guy like 4 years before me that had gotten selected and then went to the course.
Jeez.
So I'm just off like making shit up, And I'm like, I got to get ready for the course with that would have been awesome to go work with a recruiter.
Yeah, and honestly, they had because they were based out of Riley and they just floated around everywhere else. So I think that was a huge benefit because since they were based there, we had our own PT area that we would do PT at. All the guys that had went to selection already and came back and were working with the unit would run the PT program for all the guys that were getting ready for selection. And so these guys were fresh back from selection. So they were like, hey, you're going to be doing this. You're going to be doing this. This is what you need to work on. And it was awesome. They helped us get in shape. And then when I came back, now I'm one of the ones that were running the PT program. And so it helped out as, I was a young E4. I was an E4 because I came in with a degree. So I didn't have my leadership experience was absolute shit before I got there. And so at least that gave me a little bit of taste into, leading a little bit. It wasn't much, but it was more than I had before that. So at least that was a little bit of that experience before I got to the actual Q course. But yeah, man, the program they were in there was actually awesome. We came in, we PT in the mornings, we go home. We would like 2 or 3 times a week meet up with the recruiters and go sit at the shopettes or the PX and hand out pamphlets. And other than that, we were completely left to our own, do whatever the hell we wanted. So our schedule was basically all you're doing is training on your own until you leave for the Q course. It was phenomenal.
Mm. I love that. Now you get to work with a Green Beret, so he's got to be telling you stuff. I, until really, I don't know, this sounds bad. Robin Sage, I don't really know what a Green Beret does, really. Um, and that's kind of shitty to say, but similar situation. I don't like where I'm at. I got to get the fuck out of here. And so, but you get to work directly with, because the first Green Beret I ever met was that selection. And
Man.
And then I walk into my company area and he's there. That was funny. And words to you kids, if you're listening here, the people you see at selection, you're going to see them back at group also. So don't be a
Yep,
dick.
for sure.
Uh, you you could still try and make friends with the cadre. If they're like got a flash on there, or they're saying they're from your group, they know who your boss is going to be also, and they can fucking phone ahead. Um, but anyway, so I, I had no idea. Do you know knowing what you know now? Or are you getting told little bits and things about the job beforehand before you start the course?
I mean, very surface level. Nothing that really
Okay.
stuck or stood out to me, which is also something that we like to do with our videos in the team room and on our mentorship program is we tell people like the real deal, like this is what you can expect to do. I do a series called The Day in the Life where we'll sit down with people and be like, "Hey, what did you do, day to day?" Because it's not the sexy stuff that you see. Sorry about that. It's not the sexy stuff that you see on paper. Most of what we do is like our secondary or tertiary tasks. Um, and one thing that really led to that is I had a friend he went through selection with me. He was a former Marine. We get to the Q course and we made it all the way to MOS phase. And I remember one day he was like, I'm going to quit. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, dude was doing great. And he was like, I don't want to be a Green Beret. Like, this job is not what I want to be. And kind of like you, we didn't know going into it what a Green Beret actually did. The farther along you go, the more layers of the onion get peeled back. And eventually he was like, I want to be a ranger. Like he wanted to do DA. That was his thing. And so he quit or he V-dubbed and actually just recently talked to a guy that knew him in Ranger Battalion. So he wound up finding his way to Ranger Battalion and he said he was phenomenal over there. And so that's one thing that we try to do is kind of demystify, be like, look, this is what it means to be a Green Beret. This is what you're going to do. Because when you and I went through, I remember going to selection all I knew was DA kicking indoors. And then so we're in selection, and Sergeant Major, who was in some National Geographic documentaries
Yeah,
like
Sergeant
several
Major
years.
Reese.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I remember he had everybody sitting in the auditorium, and he's putting on one of his war videos, and it was just like dudes kicking in doors, like blowing up charges, doing breaching, and it was set over this like death metal soundtrack. And I was like, that's what I knew of special forces. It wasn't until much later on in the Q course, kind of like you, when I realized like, we're doing a lot more than that. Most of what we're doing is actually teaching, or we have to be so versatile. Like you could find yourself in an embassy one day, you could find yourself out on a mission another day. It's like there's so many facets and mission sets to being a Green Beret, which luckily it's something I actually really enjoyed. Luckily it wasn't a deal breaker for me. I actually really enjoy that side of SF and how versatile it is. But if you're going in thinking you're just going to be, an assaulter, I mean, you got a tough thought coming. Like it's going to be a challenge for you.
Yeah, now you're 6'7", 280 pounds. Mm, I know where you're going. If you're going to, the Criff's going to be like, yeah, I want that dude. So you probably got a better chance of it, but still, it's a slim chance. Uh, oh, I just lost the thought there. I don't know how much you actually learn in the Q course. Most of the Q course is just executing on blocks of instruction that they give you. Like IUW is just okay, redo this. Now we go into SUT. Oh, I don't know if I did not know infantry tactics coming out of SUT. Uh, you got your buddies and you're
Yeah.
supporting them when they're in a leadership position and you want everybody to pass. And so I come out of it. I never I got one graded patrol on it as the B team leader, and I sat up on the rucks and ate a chili MRE while the
Yeah.
squad leader
Yeah.
killed everybody by accident, well, or on purpose. I don't know what the fuck he did, but I never led a patrol other than that. And so I think about it now. I'm like, do I know infantry tactics?
Right.
I don't know. Fuck, do I? No, probably not. So we get to the Charlie course. Um, oh, what's our garrison life like? How much time did we spend on inventories, property books, all that other shit in the Charlie course compared to how much we spend on that shit in garrison?
The only time I had to do anything is when we had to do range security for range 37, where we did demo or whatever. And I remember I had to fill out the hand receipts for all the guys that were going to have that shitty pistol that they would give us on range security in case some
Oh
country
yeah.
bumpkins came and tried to steal the stuff. It's like we get these shitty Berettas and we're supposed to defend ourselves with these. I had to sign those out. That's the only kind of property anything that I got. I remember we were talking to the cadre one time, and he was like, yeah, so everything that you're learning here is like, you're barely going to do this stuff when you get to a team. And it's like, so what are we going to do? And he's like, it's mostly property and inventory. And we're like, all right, so can you teach us? He was like, no. And honestly, it makes sense now. But he was like, no, you'll learn it when you get there because everybody does it differently. And so like everybody has their own SOPs and stuff of how they want things done. And so I always tell people, like, when you go to MOS phase, you're going to learn the sexy stuff. You're going to learn what's on paper as your job. So if you're Charlie, you're going to learn demo and construction. If you're a Bravo, you're going to learn weapons, right? But when you get to your team, majority of your tasks are going to be like your tertiary um, uh, details or whatever. So for property, or for Charlie, you're doing property and inventory. And that's majority of what you're going to do. Bravos, you're chasing them down, trying to find, where their optics and shit are. I hated doing Bravos inventory. It's always a shit show. Um, but everybody has all these other tasks that they do that winds up becoming the majority of what they're actually doing. And so a lot of it, there's no way to teach it. So they just teach you the
No,
sexy stuff.
you're
It's
right.
funny you say that about SUT though. I remember I got to my team. I was on my team for like 2 weeks and we went to Mongolia. And I remember my team sergeant was like, hey, new guys, it was me and my buddy Dylan. And he was like, new guys, I want you to teach an ambush class. And like we're fresh out of the course, and I'm just like, ambush. I'm going through my mind. I was like, oh shit, that was so long ago. How do I do an ambush? My buddy Dylan, he was a Bravo, and he was like, so we're gonna do it like this. And I remember we did this class and we fumbled our way through this ambush class. and try to teach these Mongolians. And, you know, I guess at the end of the day, we did a good enough job, but it was one of those where I was like, I feel so underprepared and overwhelmed right now. And you really realize, like, once you get there, you don't really know shit. Like, you're fresh out of the course, you have a beret and a tab, but you haven't earned the right, really. Like, you don't know shit right away. It takes a while to learn those skills.
It does. And that's a perishable one because how often are we going out in the woods and doing battle drill 1 alpha or an L-shaped ambush or
Yeah,
a
yeah.
linear ambush or
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Now teaching to a bunch of people that don't speak English.
you'll appreciate this one. And for the kids at home, this is the least sexy, rewarding part of being an 18 Charlie that there is. But I, you will do inventories uh, all the time. And when I got hurt, I went to the B team. So what's my job now? Property. Pretty much that's it. I had a couple other things that I had to keep track of, but mostly property and fixing stuff around the company area or maintenance or things like that, painting, shit, whatever, right? I got so fucking good at doing inventories that the mythical, I had everything laid out on my last inventory out there behind the company, all of it laid out. And the commander walks up, looks at it. It's pretty, mind you. Looks at it, looks at me. Is it all there? And I go, yep. And he's like, okay. And he fucking left. And I go, and I
Oh,
go, and I go, yeah,
hell yeah.
that's it. That's the top of the mountain there.
Yep.
He went and got in the fucking Bravo's ass for 3 days,
Yep.
fucking that dude shit up because it was a fucking mess. So if you're listening, if you're perspective at the home, if just one, never lie to the commander about missing property, and two, fucking just be, if you can build a history of being squared away and correct so he can trust you, there's no better feeling than doing a layout and then asks you if it's all there and you tell him the truth and then he goes okay and he goes back to his office because he
Yep.
knows you got it.
Dude,
That
because he
is
could
the
sit there and nitpick every little item and accessory. That can take days
no,
if you do it wrong.
no, he was all there. Or maybe it wasn't the Bravo, maybe it was the Echo because the Echo had this. We're getting this is some great radio here, right? The Echo has, you've got a hammer seat and then you've got along there a little a mark, and then it could have a fucking book like
Yeah.
this of shit that you have off this one sheet,
Yeah.
and it's just a connector and cable and adapter and plug and outlet and all this other shit. And maybe it was the Echo. That sounds more familiar, but
Funny,
yeah.
just
So
two
that's not
Charlies
the
nerding out over, over
that's not the
inventory.
sexy top of the mountain, but that is one of, for the section that we actually do in Garrison, that is the highest level of achievement that you can get to as a inventory and for an inventory as an 18 Charlie.
That they should
And
give like medals you could put on your uniform for that.
no, they shouldn't. No, absolutely
That was one thing
not.
I got really lucky. My senior, when I got to my team, he was a stickler on inventories, and he told me that. I think it came from our team sergeant. But he was like, "Look, if your inventory is squared away, like for one, like you're going to look so good because most everybody else's inventory is going to look like ass." And so I remember our first couple monthly 10% inventories, like he was harking on me like hard. It's like, this isn't right. This isn't right. But I got to a point where the same way I had like a very specific way I did my inventories. Everything was organized. Everything was laid out and it was there. And I remember we got a new captain at one point and he did his inventory where he comes through and it's 100% because he's got a sign for everything. And I remember afterwards he was like, "Oh, this looks good." And I just him saying that was like, "Thanks, man. Like I appreciate that. Put a lot of fucking work into this." So yeah, thanks.
We only had 100 items, as Charlie's. The Echoes has 4,000 things on his
Yeah.
hammer seat. So it's tough to keep that shit straight, but yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
got shit
Oof.
in your team room, you got shit in the arms room, you got stuff in the cages, you've got the connexes, which are like 2 miles away. There's just stuff spread out all over the place. And so
I've
it's
spent a
it's
whole
such
day
a
just
pain.
looking for connexes.
Yeah,
I
and then
spent
you
a
got to
whole day
go if
once.
you're a specialty team, you got to go to the mountain locker or whatever
Yeah.
locker and find all that gear. It's a lot.
Again, great radio here, kids.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is great for, unless you're an 18 Charlie, real fucking nerd, you're listening at home going,
You're like,
what's
Charlie
Rogan talking?
sucks, dude.
What's Rogan talking about today? Let me find something else to listen to. No, okay. So, you're going through the Charlie course, you get to Sage. I found I didn't have any fun stories. Did you get to do anything at Robin Sage, or did you get stuck in the in the G camp like I did?
No, actually, a little bit of both. I would say half and half. I think I had an oh shit moment in Sage, and we got there, and I consider myself. We talked about this before. I consider myself a construction Charlie more than a demo Charlie. And I remember we got to Sage, and the G Chief, when we got to the camp, was like, I'm trying to build basically a talk. He wanted a talk. He had an area cleared out. And so he wanted an operations center. And he was like, I want you to build me plans, and I want you to come up with the materials list and all that. And I'm thinking of like, now's my time to shine, baby. I love this. So I sat down, I drew out this beautiful talk. Like I had, all the materials planned out. I knew how much wood we needed. I had 3-dimensional plans I drew out and everything. And I handed it to him, and he's like, perfect. I like it. Materials will be here in a couple days. And then I'm like, oh shit, I might have to actually build this thing. And so in my mind, I'm just like, I hope that this doesn't actually go through. And for like 2 days, he kept saying that the materials were coming, and I'm sitting there sweating. I was like, I don't want to build all this shit. Come to find out, obviously it was all notional, but he didn't tell us right away. So this whole time I'm sitting there stressing about this. I overachieved, like thinking I'm going to impress everybody. And now I actually have to build it. But luckily I didn't have to. So I did get stuck in the G camp for a little bit. But we also got to go out and do some pretty cool stuff, which Sage, man, there's nothing like that. Like that is the biggest game of like cops and robbers or whatever you want to call it as a kid that you could ever play. Like we're in some town conducting an assault, like doing a hit. Like we rode up in a truck, we dropped the back, we had a 240 in the back of the truck, and we just started laying waste to this area. We're like snatching people off the streets and stuff. Like there's nowhere else in the world that you can actually get to do these kind of activities and not get arrested for it. It was so much fun. I loved Sage. I actually really did.
It's a blast, man. I had almost the inverse of what you described there in the beginning. Uh, Actually, the whole thing. So they didn't want any plans. He just says, I would like an extension on this building, and no tools, no materials. And I go, well, how do you want me to do this? And he's like, well, we got a handsaw here, and here's some bent nails, and I think a hammer and some stuff. Okay. And I went out and cut fucking cedar trees down and made them into timbers, and put and dug holes in the ground, and put rocks in the bottom and shit, and just 4 posts, and started extending the building out and putting rafters on. And I built by myself with one of those curved pruning saws. I'm cutting these, and that's all I did. I never went out. The cadre, I said, hey, can I go, on a mission? He goes, no, you got your go. Other guys need to do more stuff. I was like, okay, Roger. So I'm building I finished that. I built a shitter. I built a pen for the hog, he rest in peace. Yeah. And,
Dude,
no materials. I think they dropped off some slats at one point, which I wrapped my frame in and everything.
you know what's funny is the amount of free labor that the locals get from Robin Sage. We went to this dude's farm. He was gonna we were doing an airdrop because we needed a resupply. And he had this huge farm, and it was like, oh, you're gonna link up with one of the locals. He's, one of the underground. He's a sympathizer, and we're just gonna hide out on the farm all day. And we get there, and he's like, all right, we have this giant pile of wood. He's like, I need all this wood split. Dude, we were splitting wood for like 9 hours that day. It was absolutely ridiculous. And so like and this is just one team. There's multiple teams during Robin Sage, and they're all doing something similar. So the amount of free labor that these farmers or the people in the town get, it's absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, I guess it's the price you pay to be able to use their land to have an air job, which ended up just being a LMTV kicking shit out the back, but it was still a fun time. We got some pizza out of it, so that made that made up for it.
Yeah, there's the CA project day. There's something going on, and they do get some fun stuff. As a G, we had a fun one. We were out herding cattle, and giving them immunizations and shit like that. Was wild. That was wild.
That's
Uh,
pretty cool.
Out in the mountains, that dude he was nuts. He's out there. He's like, I gotta go find this bull, and he comes back all disheveled, and he's like, I found the bull, and the bull like fucking flipped him over on his four wheeler. We're like, what happened? He's like, you know what a 2,000-pound bull does when he's angry? What? Whatever the fuck he wants to. He charged me and flipped me over. I'm like, Jesus, dude, are you okay? He's like, it's all right. That's a normal thing. I'm like, no,
Those people are
doesn't.
wild. Yeah, those people out there, man, they're wild, dude.
Oh yeah, I got to work with them when I went down there for the hurricane relief. The locals, it was
Yeah.
something else. People coming in, and those emergency management people, they live there and shit like
Yeah.
that. And also, little thievery. That was one a lot of they were out stealing the supplies that were supposed to go to people in need and shit like that. Some of those
Yeah.
folks. So it was a weird situation. What was it? So what's it like graduating for you, man? After all this process of now, do you feel like you've gotten to the point where you're like, I am where I want to be?
Graduation was weird. So it was, the whole Q course, you're going through so much stress because I mean, Q course, you could be dropped at any moment, whether you fail something or some sort of violation, integrity violation, safety violation, whatever it is, you could be failed. So the stress levels are through the roof. Certain phases, especially MOS phase, like when we did calculation and placement or UXO or anything like that, like people are getting dropped left and right. And there's so much that you have to remember so you don't step over that cord or whatever it is. So the stress is just to the max. And then you finally get to language. And I feel like in language, I'm glad they put it at the end because it's kind of 6 months to kind of decompress before you actually go to a team. And so for those, 6 months, like you show up, you do PT in the morning, and then you just go and you sit in a classroom and learn language. It was tough, it was challenging, but in a different way. It didn't have the stress, in my opinion, as everything else. And so then you graduate, and it's like this weird moment of kind of just freedom. Everything is like, oh, you accomplishment, I guess. Like I made it. I'm here. And then like a day or two later, you're immediately hit with the reality of, well, now I have to go to a team. And now I have to walk through that team room door for the first time. And it's like immediately all of this dread and anxiety and everything comes back, at least for me. Because this whole time I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, what is it going to be like when I finally get to a team? It's like, well, now it's real because now I've actually graduated. I'm actually going to a team. And so then it was just stress of like what that is actually going to be like. And in my mind, I had all these like horror scenarios playing through. My integration into a team was nothing like any of them. I was completely psyching myself out. But yeah, for me, graduation was like a small moment of like really relief and freedom, followed by immense dread after that.
Mm, yeah, yeah. And then it's the long PCS to Fort
Yeah.
Lewis.
Yeah. I came back to Florida. I took as much leave as I could, came back to Florida for like a month, and then we drove all the way there to Washington. It was like I think we split it up in like 4 or 5 days. And yeah, it was one of those where it was my first time being any farther west than Fort Sill, Oklahoma, or Fort Riley, Kansas. First time driving through mountains, really. First time seeing the West Coast. Like I had not traveled much prior to the military. So it was a lot of firsts for me. And then it was weird as we're driving up, we come through California, Oregon, and there's a bridge that goes from Oregon to Washington. It's like the state line is in the middle of the bridge. And it was so weird. As soon as we hit that bridge, we cross the state line, it starts to rain. And we're like, oh, I guess this is Washington. It just rains all the time. It's like immediately when we crossed the state line, we walked right into the rain. And so it was a interesting welcome to the state of Washington. But I actually really love Washington. It's one of my favorite spots now.
Yeah, I did too. People don't like the politics of it, but it's a very beautiful place,
Yeah, for sure.
especially when it's sunny out. Um,
Yeah.
it's, it's too bad it's gray and wet for 8 months a year, 9 months a year. What did you want to? What was your best case scenario of a team when you get to the company?
Dude, I don't even know. So one thing that stressed me out, and I don't know why I was stuck on this, is throughout the course you always hear as a new guy, you show up with a case of beer. And I'm
Absolutely.
thinking in my mind, I'm like, how do I find out what type of beer they show up with? So in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to show up with the wrong type of beer and they're going to hate me immediately. And then in other words, after that, I'm like, coming from the regular army, like I would never walk through the hallways with a case of beer like that. I would get freaking demolished if I did that. So then I'm like, do I hide it in a duffel bag? Like I'm making up all these weird scenarios, which were like in SF, you walk through the hallway with a case of beer all day long. Nobody cares. Um, but as far as an ultimate scenario, I guess I was just gonna get there. I'd open the door, they'd be like, "Hey, welcome to the team," or something like that. I don't know, but I had no idea. I didn't know what to expect, and so I just didn't want it to go poorly by doing the wrong thing. And then when I actually got called down, and then when I got there, I found out they're like, "Oh, you're gonna be on the B team." I didn't even know that was an option, and so
No, yeah.
I'm sitting there. I'm like, so I remember talking to the team sergeant of the B team, and I was like, so what do I do? And he was like, you'll figure it out. And I'm just like, I don't know what that means. And I found a Charlie. He was the senior Charlie there. My first day on the B team was his last day on the B team. And he was like, "Oh, we've got to change a command inventory coming up. So let me teach you how to do this." So I got an inventory lesson in like half of an afternoon. And then he was gone after that. So my first inventory was completely by myself. It was the worst inventory in the world. Luckily the commander, when he came in, like he knew I'd just gotten there. And so he kind of gave me a little bit of slack, but it was bad. Then we had a shitty Bravo on the B team who he brought me a stack of hand receipts and was like, "Oh, I need you to sign these." And me not knowing any better, I just start signing away, just signing everything. Looking back at it now and realizing who the type of person he was, he wound up getting kicked out. Is I know there was some fraudulent shit on those hand receipts, and I just signed away on them. I could have been, raked over the coals for that. But
I'm
I
not
didn't
going to
know
name names here. I'm not going to name names here. What year is this?
when I got there,
Yeah.
2015. And this is Seco, Second Battalion.
Yeah, I know.
This guy ended up
Wait,
getting kicked out.
because I took the property book in September or October of 17 of 16. I signed for everything in the company.
That's about maybe right when he was getting kicked out, or maybe a little
Mm.
bit after that. My old team sergeant took over the company, and once he did that, that was his main goal, was getting him out of there.
I do remember the property book being a little iffy.
Yeah, that probably had my name all over it. Sorry about that. It got better. I learned though, man. Like I was saying, like when you get to a team, when you're a brand new guy, you don't know what you don't know. And so I didn't know that, this was how you do an inventory. I didn't know, like, all I thought was like, he's like, "Oh, Charlie needs to sign this." So I'm like, "Well, I'm the only Charlie here. So I guess I'm signing." And you look up to guys that are more senior. This guy had been in the company, had been a Green Beret for a few years at that point. And so I kind of trusted that he knew what he was doing. It wasn't until later on I realized that he was on the B team for disciplinary reasons and because no team wanted him and he had a ton of issues. But you live and you learn. Luckily I
Yeah.
survived it.
Luckily, yeah, you could still be paying
Yeah.
having a salary garnishment or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's for sure.
Mm. Oof, that sucks. Yeah, that is an option. The B team, and then see what happens after that. This stuff you don't know, but you're right. Your team sergeant said, "Oh, you'll figure it out. You will figure it out because you're not going to sit there and it's not like the company area in the regular army where you just sit on the if your squad leader doesn't have anything for you or your team leader doesn't have anything for you, you just sit there and you're just expected to sit there until something comes up. In SF, you're going to sit there for 5 minutes and go, all right, I need to figure out how something works here. And you'll see somebody doing something, I think I need to be doing that. And then you kind of look
Right.
around and nobody's watching me. I'm going to go say hi. And
Right.
then you
Yeah.
introduce yourself. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, hey man. This fucking thing's broken. I got to fix it. Do you know what it is? No, I don't even know what it is, but I got to fix it. And then you'll
Right.
start
Yeah.
working on that shit.
It's
And
a good
that's
introduction to SF because you kind of, like they always say, like, find work. And so
Yeah.
that's like you said, I got there in my first couple of days. I'm just like sitting up in the office and I'm just like, I feel like I need to be doing something. And so exactly that. I go down, talk to the supply guy, figure out, what's going on there. Who supply guy is at Charlie is going to be one of your best friends, anyways. And then, I just started learning about things from other sections that were there, guys that had been there longer. And then, before I knew it, I was getting called down to a team.
Yeah. Any team that you didn't want to go to?
I was not too keen on going to the dive team. If I would have got sent there, I would have, I obviously wouldn't have had any objections, but that was the one I kind of didn't want to go to. And then, when you get to a team or to a company, at least for me, I got the sergeant major called me in. He's like learning about me, basically asking, where I'm from, stuff like that. And I told him I was from Florida. And he was like, "Oh, do you like to swim?" And I immediately knew, like, I had heard stories like dive teams always need people. And I was like, I like to swim, but most of the time it's like floating in a pool with a beer in my hand. It's not, anything super serious. And he was like, and then he asked me, he's like, "So how you feel about the dive team?" And I was like, "Well, basically told him like I wouldn't have any objections to it. Wouldn't be my first choice." And then the only other one was the mountain team. Was the one that when I got there, the mountain team was like every company has that team, like that's the shit hot team, and that came from the team sergeant. But the team sergeant, he was a guy named Zeus. He was so from the outside serious and just locked in, just dialed in, like he knew his shit, and almost to the point where it was like somewhat intimidating. In the few interactions that I had with him, he just seemed very serious and very just like I could tell why that team was so good. And then I got words like, "Oh yeah, you're going to the mountain team," and immediately I was like, "Oh shit!" Like I know because I have to now live up to these expectations. Ended up being the greatest decision I think that was made. I'm so glad I went to that team instead of anywhere else. I feel like that pressure was something that I've always thrived on the pressure, and I kind of needed that to kind of really push myself. But yeah, when I got the word I was going to that team, I was like, "Oh damn!" And then we're sitting there, and I just hear him in the hallway, and he was like, "Roqueplot, get your ass down here!" And when he said that, my heart just like dropped. And I remember the other guys on the B team looking at me. And I always tell people it's like if you ever watch Toy Story and you got the aliens in the machine and the claws coming down, that's what it felt like when I got called to my team. And like I just got up and ran down there and I walked in and it was just him and the Fox because the team had just came back from R&R from deployment. And so my introduction onto the team was kind of not at all what I expected. It was just him and the Fox, and he was like, "Here's you need to get this hat so you can have a team hat." He's like, "You need to get." He asked Dan the Fox. He's like, "What kind of beer you drink?" And he was like, "Corona." He was like, "Get some Corona." He's like, "You have an hour and be back." And so that was kind of like my intro to the team. I'm racing around Washington trying to find a Corona, and they said, "Don't forget the limes." Limes were the hardest freaking thing for me to find. I got the hat and I got the Corona. I had to drive all over the place looking for fresh limes so that I didn't show up without limes, and I just barely made it back in time. And that was my kind of first introduction to the team before I got to meet everybody else.
Yeah. The what do they call it? The commissary's a few miles away from the compound, and then the shopette's down the road, the other direction from the compound. Um,
Dude, I had to go get my
yeah.
hat, the specific hat. I had to go all the way to Tactical Tailor, which was off base,
Oh,
which was, not very close either. I had to go all the way there. And then, and then I get back and Dan's not even there, the guy that wanted the beer. And I walk in and I'm like thinking they're going to be like, "Oh, crack a beer or something like that." I put it in the refrigerator. It sat in that refrigerator for probably weeks before anybody touched it. But it's kind of like the, rite of passage. Everybody has to do it.
now for better or for worse, um, alcohol culture on the teams is pretty ingrained. So much so that really nothing happens without having a beer at group or anything like that. I I remember we were in the and this is staff, mind you. We're on battalion staff. They're getting ready for their trip. They've got the briefing with the colonel or the general coming up in a few days, and and I go. I'm getting ready to change and go home in a little bit, and they're all going to stay because I have no stake in this deployment. I'm not going. I'm not going to hang out and do nothing. So I just open the fridge and I think I grabbed something, and I went, oh man. And I close it, and I walk out there to the captain, the AS3. I was like, hey, just to let you know, sir, the beer fridge is empty. And they're all in the middle of like planning, very serious planning, and everybody's at the, and this dude stands up, says, "Can I have attention in the top, like in the S3?" Like the warrant comes out, the fucking major like picks his head out, Sergeant Major, everybody stops and they're looking at him. Everybody give Ward $20 so he can go fill up the beer fridge. And they fucking people start like peeling off 20s. I went and filled up the whole bed of my truck with beer. And then they all came out and fucking started loading the beer fridge. And then they all go back to work. They all cracked a beer and went back to their desk and went back to typing as if nothing had happened. So, and I thought that was pretty cool. On the surface, it's like whatever. Everybody just wants to drink, and I was like, no, man, these dudes are involved in serious planning and a serious deployment where people could seriously get injured or killed, and they're taking it very seriously. But they want to have a beer while they're doing it.
Right. Yeah.
And I looked more into it. I was like, that was a really cool thing because he didn't like, why are you bothering me or anything like that. He goes, this cannot be. We cannot have an empty beer fridge. Give this man some money so he can fill up the beer fridge. And I happily went and did it because I was a support guy at that point. So that was fucking, yeah, beer's a big thing. So for prospective Green Beret, I don't know how it is in the other branches. Do you guys get a lot of crossover towards other branches for selections or anything like that?
Not as much. Most of it's all SF. We've had a few guys wanting to go Ranger, a few guys wanting to go 3-letter agencies, but mostly SF by and large.
Hmm. Speaking of, you said Ranger, and that guy you said V-dubbed out and went to a Ranger. We skipped right over that. That's fucking tough to be in the SF pipeline, which is pretty chill compared to RASP and
Right.
Ranger Battalion. Those are not the same encyclopedia. That's a
No, not at
completely
all.
different volume. And to just go from gentleman's course to hair on fire all the
Yeah.
time that's a tough individual with the right mindset. That's a
Well, and
fucking guy.
it is. It is. It really is. And I use that story. I tell people that story all the time, kind of as a cautionary tale, because I think it's important that you go into this pipeline with the right expectations, knowing what you're getting into. Because I mean, if you look at him, he did this in MOS phase, which MOS is probably a year, 14 months into the Q course. He could have saved himself, over a year's worth of pain and hardship if he would have known what he was getting into originally and could have, went there earlier. And I was talking to him, and the reason he did that, and I don't know if it's the same way, but he was prior service, like I said, former Marine. And for him to join the military at the time, you could only come in as an 18 X-ray. And so a lot of people used it kind of as a backdoor to infantry, is what they called it, where people would come in and they just quit the course and then they'd become infantry needs of the Army. But for him, he was like going to actually try it out to be SF because he thought SF was something else. More he learned, more he realized he actually wanted a different mission set. So yeah, he wasted a lot of time. But yeah, like you said, you're going from SF to a completely different extreme because those missions are so different, the selections are so different, and they're looking for a different type of individual over there. So yeah, he didn't take the easy route, that's for sure.
No, no, the easy would have just been to finish,
Yeah.
graduate.
So
And as weird as that sounds to say, the easy would have just been like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go to graduation and I'll be fine. And then I'll go figure it out later. But that's good on you. We skipped right over that. I said that's a tough, tough individual
yeah,
there.
for
So,
sure.
how much time did you spend on in group? So you said you got out at 20, right?
I got out. No, I got out in 2018. So I did my just over
2018.
3
Wow.
years. Yeah. So when you get at the end of the Q course, you have to re-enlist. You have a certain amount of time left. I did that, and then when that enlistment was up, that's when I got out. So it's just over 3 years.
Why only 30 years?
So it kind of goes back to, well, there's a couple factors. The one thing, the main was probably my family. So we're from Florida. And when I went SF, when I sold my wife on this whole thing, I was like, there's a SF group that's right next to home. So I live in Tallahassee. Seventh group is like an hour and a half down the road. And so I was like, there's an SF group that's right down the road from home. I'll get there. Everything will be great. Well, then I didn't get Spanish. I got Pashto out of selection. And I was like, well, Pashto is one of the secondary languages at seven group. The dream's still alive. So then we're going through training. And then right before language school, we all get rounded up and they're like, most of your languages are switching. And I got assigned Russian. And I was like, oh shit. Like there goes seventh group. And then so I'm talking to her. I was like, well, I guess we're going to Colorado. So we start looking at homes, and they always tell you don't buy a house. I remember they told us in this same briefing, they're like, don't buy any homes until you get your actual group assignment. And so we're looking in Colorado, and then come to find out later on in language, we get our group assignments. I get first group, and I'm like, how the hell? I got Russian. I should be going
Yeah.
10th group. How did I get first group? And I remember when I got there was, I think they told us there was 22 people in our battalion that were Russian speakers. And then come to find out of my team, I got to use my language more than anybody else because, you know, working in Mongolia, all the older Mongolians spoke Russian. The Mongolian officers all went and trained in Russian OCS, basically officer candidate school. So I got to use Russian quite a bit over there. Um, but yeah, but then after that, you know, we got to group, and being from Florida, I was in Washington State. I was, you know, with our op tempo, we're gone so much. It was really tough on my wife. When we did that 6-month Korea rotation, I moved them back home to Florida, and then you know, picked them back up afterwards, moved back over there, and it was starting to become a lot. We just had a kid in the middle of that too, so every time I came home, they'd pick me up from the airport. I remember she'd hand me my daughter, and she would just start crying because she didn't know who I was. And then so that happened a couple times, and then I was like, you know what? I don't know if I can keep chasing this deployment for something that's not necessarily a given. And I was like, there's a lot of things I want to do on the outside, so I'm just going to get out now instead of signing another 3-year contract, doing everything over again, probably still not even getting my deployment, and then getting out afterwards and being right back at the same spot. So that was kind of the main thing why I got out. There was a few issues with command leadership at the time that, you know, were going on. I didn't really like the direction or the people that were in charge at that point. And so that, you know, wasn't the main reason, but also, you know, wasn't going to keep me in. You know, I wasn't going to stay in just to work with those guys. So
Are you talking about the leadership, like the group command team and all
no, this was battalion leadership, battalion
that?
sergeant major mainly at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
He gathered
There
everybody up
was,
in Korea and had a talking to all the NCOs. And after that, I was like, I don't respect this guy.
well, that happens. There's there were some issues. You're not the only one who has said similar things, and I've apparently been told by quite a few people because I walked out the door at the end of 18, right? I high fived, and apparently all this really stupid shit walked in the door as I was walking out, and guys like things got weird after you left.
That's the same thing I heard when I left. Actually, a lot of people, 3 or 4 people from my team left within probably 6 to 8 months. And I've heard the same thing after that. Everybody that stayed in said that things just got really dumb.
Yeah. Now, reference to earlier in the episode, I got that hard line. I go, oh, things are getting weird. Ah, you guys got to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
Man, it's a, but it is weird or interesting to now be encouraging people to go into this life when it's changed so much over the last decade of because it was the fucking coolest thing in the world in 2015 I thought, and that's kind of I think that opinion or view of group or within group has changed quite a bit. So it's I try to offer very little current events advice about group as much as I can. I try to draw on I go, hey, this is 10 years old. Everything I'm going to tell you, a lot of it's probably still relevant, but some of it might not apply. Um, you guys have got to be more plugged in on what things are like in group day to day now. How do you convey that? Or are you, because as I said earlier, now that we're out, we can say whatever the fuck we want. But there's a
Right.
point at which you got to check yourself and go, I don't know if I should say that.
Yeah. And honestly, you got to be careful because I'm still I still keep in contact with quite a few people that are still active, especially at first group, but other places as well. But I mean, like you've been there, everybody's experience is unique to their self, to themselves, and everybody's first battalion and or second battalion and third battalion, same time frame, two completely different experiences. It all depends on your bubble and who's influencing your bubble. So we have to be kind of very careful, and I think everybody in our shoes needs to be cautious about offering advice on current events or the current climate within, because all of our information is coming from an individual whose information could be completely different from somebody across the hall. So I mean, we could kind of say, like, generally be like, look, like the whole thing with ghosting teams, like that's something that's happening. As far as like, oh, the leadership in this battalion or whatever, that's one person's opinion, so I'm not going to use his story as fact. But yeah, a lot of it is like, hey, this is how it was when I was in. And one thing I tell people, like, I talk about how when I got out, there was some leadership that I had issues with. But the great thing about SF is you have a lot more control over your career and where you go than a lot of people would think, especially more so than the regular army. So, like, for me, I was looking at ways that if I did stay in, be like, all right, well, if this deployment doesn't come down, I still, because of my qualifications, I had a pretty good chance of getting an instructor slot at the mountain school, which would have been awesome. I loved Colorado. I loved all that. And so that if I would have stayed in, that would have been my goal, is to try to get myself into that, which, when you're in that position, it's a lot easier to influence where you go. Sometimes things will come down and you'll have no choice in the matter. Like you might get hit with, you're going to SWIC, and this is all there is. There's a lot of ways to try to get out of it, but at the end of the day, an order is an order. So yeah, as far as giving people advice on current climates, I try to stay cautious about that. I just give people experience what I had, be like, look, this is my experience. Yours may be similar, it may not.
Best way to go. Experiences may vary. I think that's my biggest comment in the comment section of
Yeah.
Instagram is somebody will say something like, "Oh, experiences may vary."
Right. Yeah.
And it's really true. As we said right in the beginning of this, you could be in the same team room and see things from a different point of view or have a completely different mission set. And you're right, 1-1 is not the same as 2
Right.
and 3-1.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
those are not the same units.
Not at all. Yeah.
Fucking gone all the fucking time, all the time, and having to keep up with a different set of rules. You're on an island, so everything's a mission to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And why didn't you go to what's down by you? What's down there? 320th, I guess, is down there, right?
Yep. So National Guard is what you're talking about when I got out.
Yeah.
All right. So the reason I didn't, National Guard was actually something I was thinking about. During that career rotation, we had a National Guard team. I want to say they were 19th group. I might be wrong on that, but I think they were 19th. We had a National Guard team that came and replaced us. We were on a base called K-16, which is right outside of like Gangnam, and I forget what else is in that area. But it's in Seoul, South Korea. And so this National Guard group team, they came and replaced us. And when they got there, it just soured my opinion on National Guard. And so this team they first off, they weren't an organic team. They were just kind of put together, assembled for this mission. A lot of them were older guys, which isn't really a detriment, but their attitudes when they got there, they had their main thing was like, oh, how do you get women on base? How do you like, where do you go to party and all this? And we're like, look, we can get to, like, I'll tell you all the spots you can go party and have a good time, but we got to focus on this first. Like, let's, do a proper handover exchange. And that was their main focus, was partying and going out. So much so that one of their dudes got kicked out of country before they even took over. He got in trouble. And, like, back then, I'm still sure it's still the same. If you get an alcohol related incident, you're gone. And so he had an alcohol related incident and he got kicked out before we even fully handed over to those guys. And so that put a sour taste in my mouth for National Guard. And when I did the 20th group documentary, we went down there and I told him, I was like, if I would have met you guys, if you guys would have came and replaced us in Korea, I would have been National Guard all day. Those guys were the most professional group of guys that I had seen in a long time. So it just goes to show you again, experiences can vary, teams vary. Teams within the same company are going to be completely different. I just happened to have a bad experience with a National Guard team. And after that, I was like, I don't want any part of this.
I
Knowing
don't want
what
to
I
make
know
this
now, though, I would have
I
probably
know
done something different.
I don't want to make this section too much about bashing uh, National Guard because some of the people I met on the teams were pretty good, but we set up so Charlie Company 3rd Battalion set up the first leg of that rotation in January of 2016, right? And then I rotated back in June. I was at the I wasn't at the TBI clinic. I think I was just at sick call to like try to get over to the TBI clinic to get some treatment or something like that. And I'm sitting there. My buddy sits down right across from me, and we're talking. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to go to Korea in January." I was like, "Well, what company are you in?" And he's like, "Charlie Second." And I said, "Hmm, I would I would like to go back to Korea because my girlfriend's there, you know." And so I stood up, walked out of sick call, got in my car, drove back over to the company, walked in, sat down with Sergeant Major. It's like, "Hey, Charlie Second's going to Korea. Can I go back with them? Can you work something out to get me over there?" And he goes, "You know what? You know, Sergeant Major over there just asked the group this morning if they had anybody that would want to go advon." And he gets up, walks over, walks in, and he comes back 5 minutes later. He's like, "Hey, you're going to Charlie Company 2nd Battalion. Pack your shit. You're going over there."
Nice.
And so I just fucking and I was like, "What do you I owe you?" And he's like, "The usual." So I dropped off a bottle of Johnny Walker, and that was it. And so I moved over there. Now, so I did the first and the third rotations, right? The second one, we got a 19th group. I believe it was 19th group. They're out of Utah, and I think that's where 19th group is out of. National Guard unit that took over for us. Terrible. But just and not from the only this is on the front side. Um, the the way they took over like the just the way everything was handled on the transfer, right? And we handed them over this very nice operational setup. Um, I come back 4 months later and it is all destroyed. All of it.
Right.
Like I'm like, where's the property book? They had lost vehicles, they had destroyed vehicles, they had shot through vehicles, that disabled, there's equipment lost and things like that. And so I spent the majority of my time on Advon getting everything back together. Like they had lost a vehicle. They took it to a place to get it fixed and they parked it in the parking lot, left the keys in it, didn't tell the attendant that it was there, and then left, and then forgot where they parked it. So when they handed me the property book, I said, "Where's this vehicle?" And they said, "Oh, we don't know. We can't remember where we put it." And so I had to drive to every base and through every parking lot and every street in every base until I found it, and the keys were in it. And
Jeez.
that was just like one thing. There was they didn't turn in all their ammo. They didn't turn in all their ammo, and their solution for getting rid of it was they just shoved it underneath one of the bunks in one of the bays with a bunch of garbage. And so I had
Out of
my
sight,
Joes.
out
I
of
was like,
mind.
"Hey," I was like, "Hey, clean out this bay. We got teams coming in. They're going to occupy this bay and stuff like that." I was like, "Okay." So they come to me like an hour later, and the E5 that was he's like, "Hey, they left some ammo." I was like, "Yeah, a couple rounds or whatever." And he goes, "Nah, man, like a lot of rounds." And I was like, "Okay, let's go take a look." And it's fucking hundreds and hundreds of rounds and linked shit and all kinds of stuff. And so
Jeez.
that was just one thing on another and another. And yeah, I was quite disappointed with them as well. And then they took over from you guys and same shit, right? Same
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Exact same situation. I go up to this SFRE and I'm like, this is not what I thought. Like these guys are squared the fuck away.
Yeah.
Like why isn't everybody like you guys? And that's the thing, right? Everybody's different. And some of these guys that are in the guard, and what I know from torpedoing my own life, right? Uh, some of these guys, and now I think much differently. Like these guys were done with rotations. Like some of these dudes had 3, 4, 5 rotations to Afghanistan or Iraq, and they're like, I don't want to do it anymore. But they're trying to get to retirement, And I get
Yep.
that. I get that. And they're tired and they're like, fuck this, and when you combine regular life with just being a full-time Green Beret, let alone a full different life of being a civilian and being a Green Beret, and then you try and mix them, there's
Yeah.
got to be some friction in there.
Yeah, it's tough because
Really,
you're putting on different hats left and right. It's like I don't know. I
you
could
haven't dealt with any of your problems either, and you're
right.
like, oh, and then they're like, hey, go to Korea for 6 months. So I try and look at the whole thing with like a grain of salt of like, I'll bet these people had something going on to where they aren't the people that they used to be,
Right.
because it's just, that's what I like to think of it as. I don't know
That's what
what you think
that's the
now.
way I look at all the people. Like I told you, that guy that had me sign all the documents when I all the hand receipts when I got there. Like he was a shitbag. He was a piece of shit. But at one point, he was a highly motivated individual that made it through selection, that made it through the Q course. You know, somewhere along the path, something happened. And so it's I don't know. I feel like everybody at one point had good intentions, or they hopefully wouldn't be there. But you know, things happen, I guess.
They do. They do. It's unfortunate because I joke, I say we're only one or two decisions away from living in the trailer park, and I don't mean owning it. And that's true.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
you can you can get your tab. That's one thing. Keeping your tab, oof, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
there's a lot of ways to lose your tab
yeah.
in your
There
beret
sure
and get
is.
kicked out of group.
You got to earn it.
What does what's the future look like for you, or what is it ideally? What's the idyllic future look like for you?
Man, that's a deep question. So the ideal future for me, you know, I think I'm working my way there, and so like my goal is to I like to maximize my time. I've had, you know, I've done so much that has taken time away from the things that I actually really enjoy, and I feel like that was just paying dues. And so now my goal is to be able to, you know, I love to travel and I like showing my family new experiences, especially my kids. Like I love watching them like grow up and just teaching them and showing them more than what I had. And so ideally for me is just going to be able to, you know, do that. I've been luckily been able to take my girls out of the country twice now, once each year, and showing them a little bit of Europe. I feel it's important. That's one thing I didn't get until the military was I think it's important to get out and experience other cultures and see how other people live. I think it brings a lot of perspective and gratitude into your life. And so for me, ideally, I want to be able to do that and just have something that I can leave to my girls as well. And I've always been entrepreneurial mindset. And so building a business, you know, I'm working right now. I've always been into real estate and I've got the investment properties. And that's the one thing that I really want to grow the most. And my daughter now, she just turned 14. She's got a huge interest in real estate as well, and so to be able to have something that, you know, I can then eventually pass off to her, I think that's the biggest goal.
Yeah. And what about with FNG Academy?
So FNG Academy, we've been going through some transitions. It took us a lot of trial and error, and I'm sure you probably experienced some of this in what you're doing. And if not, I'm sure that you're going through some of it. But you know, you'll start out, and a lot of people like to see you, you know, whatever you start with. Like we started with those talking head videos on YouTube, and then eventually kind of got away from those because I guess, you know, there's only so much that you can really say before it starts to get stale. So you're always reinventing yourself. And so the FNG Academy, our latest thing is the thing that we've always wanted the whole time. We all love making the content. That's been from the beginning. We like the content. We like coming up with ideas. We like executing those ideas and then having and seeing the finished project or the finished product. That documentary that we did, perfect example. That's the road that we're going down. And so we want to be able to do more of those. We've got some pretty cool units that we're actually speaking with right now that we hope we can get lined up to do the same thing with them. But that's the goal, is getting into more content, more serious style content, long form content. That's the FNG goal.
Yeah, man. I love to see it. I I have so many different um, avenues for the page that I, I was thinking about the other day. I was like, if I run out of one, I just more focus on the other, because the base of the show is this: is I lesser known operators come on and tell me their story or what they've got going on, or because every episode is different. It's like you know, we could have what you guys are doing, and it's centered kind of around that path of getting into group in the pathway and things like that. Um, but just keep interviewing guys, and then all these other things like fitness, and then like taking pictures and writing and all this other stuff, my opinion and things like that. So I don't know where I'm gonna go. I
Right.
like
Yeah.
the direction you guys are going. That video was great. I think you need to lean more into that because that's pretty good. You got some skills there. I yeah, I've only been doing this for 6 months, man. So I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm fucking everything. I don't know about trial and error. It's just all error
Yeah.
forward at this point.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
that's the only way to do it. You try things like if you went back to our archives, especially on YouTube, and even the stuff that never made it to YouTube, we tried a lot of different things to kind of see what we wanted to do. You know, for a while, Sean and I, we were both big fans of Casey Neistat, which if you're not familiar with him, he used to do daily vlogs for years, but and so we started trying to like vlog, but that didn't feel authentic. And then like over the years, like we've realized like what we actually really enjoy is the content and being able to still show people and like bring them into these worlds. Cause that's one thing that we're able to do is provide Abel, who's our camera guy. He makes everything that looks awesome is because of Abel. Sean and I are legitimately there for access and placement to get Abel into these places where he can then frame and tell this story about it. And so, you know, without us, Abel wouldn't be able to do it. Without Abel, we definitely wouldn't be able to do it. Sean and I are just two freaking idiots running around with a camera and we wouldn't know what to do. But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. It's not being afraid to try something new, not being afraid to reinvent yourself. And every time you do, there's going to be a lot of people that, you know, don't like it, a lot of people that talk shit. But as long as you like what you're doing, I think that's all that matters at the end of the day is if you enjoy it and you're happy with it, just like us, you know, a lot of stuff we do might not get the most views, but if it's something that we actually enjoy, that's all that matters.
I welcome anybody to talk shit in the comments because it's free engagement. It's
Oh
ads.
yeah.
It's free ads from
Yeah.
Instagram because if I don't feel like jumping in and fighting with them, 40 other people will. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden you got hundreds of comments and it's pushing it out.
That's when you
Um,
know you got something good is when people start arguing with each other in the comments.
and I don't even have to get in there. And
Yeah.
if I feel they're slowing down, I'll just throw out like, I'll be like, what ODA were you on?
Yeah.
And then they'll go, oh, I wasn't on an ODA. And then other people will jump in. I'll be
Just
like,
pour some
okay, we'll
gas on the
fire,
fire.
pour some gas on the fire because I'm not being confrontational. They'll say something about special forces or quiet professional. I'll be like, oh, which team were you on, brother? Oh, I
Yeah.
wasn't on a team. And then people shit all over them. So, well, fuck, man. It's great. It sounds like you're really happy in what you're doing. I love to hear that. Were were you, this way when you got out? Because everybody kind of falls into this kind of depressive slump when they get out of, did I make the right decision or they missed the life? How long did it take you to come out of that to get to where you are now?
Oh, dude. Honestly, probably three and a half years. And so it was for me, it was I did for a while. So right when I got out, within a couple months, I started to feel like, man, maybe I did leave too soon. And then I was like, well, started looking into other things. I had this weird phase where I was like, I got another selection in me. And I reached out to an Air Force recruiter and I was like, what does it take to get into the CCT pipeline? I was like, that'll be awesome. And then, luckily that kind of went by the wayside. And because I realized at that point, I was just chasing something and I didn't know. So then I found out like I have too much free time. That was in the time that I took off. And so I was like, I need to get a job. I got to start working. And so I found here in Florida, we have a cannabis company. It's actually the largest in America. It's called True Leaf. And so I went and I interviewed there. I was like, if I do something, I want to do something like cool. Like I was proud to be like, oh, I work special for, I'm a Green Beret. It's like I don't want to be like, oh, I work at Home Depot or something like that. It was like cannabis industry. That's edgy. That's cool. And so I got in, and I immediately got hired to set up and run the quality assurance department for all of the grow sites for the entire company. And so that was like I had no idea what I was doing. I remember when I got word that I got the job, I remember Googling what does quality assurance in cannabis do, because I had no idea. But then so I just treated it as kind of like an SF mission. And I went, I had key leader engagements with all the heads of all the different departments. And I was like, hey, what are your issues? What are your inefficiencies? What are you seeing? And then I went and I worked with each department from the, baby plants all the way up to harvest. And I was learning each department, what they all did and what I could do to help out. And at the same time, like I'm identifying the high performers from each one. I went back and I hired them all onto my team. And so it's like I treated it very much like a foreign internal defense mission kind of for SF. And I did that for a bit, but still I just like I was saying earlier, it was unfulfilling. Like I was successful in my role, I was making good money, I was leading a team, but it just at the end of the day, the overall mission of the organization wasn't something that I was like into anymore. Um, and so then that's when my buddy started doing the YouTube videos and he was like, hey, can you help me out? Set up like an online store. And I was like, oh, for sure. And I was like, we're going to grow this to a point where, this will be our full-time job. And, it took about a year and we got to the point where I was able to quit working at the company, then at the cannabis company. And I was able to start doing this full time. And that was when I started to kind of feel like I found a home and got out of that weird transitional phase from when I left the military. But it did, man. It was tough. I didn't expect it to be as tough as it was. I was like, I did just over 6 years total. And I was like, that's not that long. Like people that get out after 20 years, that'll be a tough transition. But when you lose that sense of identity, like you take it off. Like when you walk around base and you've got the beret on your head, everybody notices you. They'll see you from across the parking lot. And now all of a sudden, like you get out and you're like, well, now I'm just a regular person again. Like it was weird. It was hard to deal with. And so it took me a bit.
Yeah. Wearing your accomplishments is something. And I had said earlier, we discount it. And there's a lot of it in your subconscious. You walking around base with a beret and a tab on, whether you know it or not, you're showing off almost. And like I said, whether you know it or not. And then when you take that off, you go, oh man, I'm just a fucking loser.
Yeah.
That's what you tell yourself. Like I'm not me anymore. Because you're tied to that because you legally have to do that every day. You got to go and be in that job that you worked so hard to do, and it's an obligation. And that's not, you're not a loser. Fucking nobody is. Like you doing everything your country asks for you. Then you want to do more and you can't get enough. Or maybe you got addictive personality or something. But when it goes away and you're not ready to deal with it, oof, that's a fucking bummer, no matter what level you're at.
Yeah. It's one of those that, I mean, you can do all the classes when you transition out that you want, but I don't think any of it fully prepares you for losing that identity or that sense of yourself. Cause I mean, it's something you work so hard for so long and then you get it. And I remember when I was like I would rarely ever wear my uniform. Like I was always in PTs all day. If I had to go to battalion, I'd put on my uniform, then I'd take it back off. I didn't like going to the PX or whatever, wearing it. The only time I did was when I had to. But then when I didn't have the option anymore, it's like, oh man, like I should have embraced it more. It's gone now. Now what do I do?
Yeah, putting on the cries a couple weeks ago, just
Yeah,
slick, hanging out with the boys.
feels cool.
Oof. It's like, oof. And then they, because there was one other guy there, and but he was on the team, and he was taking pictures. That picture I put up, it's the only picture they took of me, and I saw it, I almost started crying. I was like, I like they took a picture of me, and it's perfect. Like, look at that. That's me hanging out, that's the only cool guy doing. You can't see what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
to me, that's a cool guy picture. And I don't have any. I don't have any. Like the one with the meeting the general I put up the other day, or this one up here. Like, fuck, that's no. Like that's it right there. That's a picture. So I'm so excited to be part of that and to be part of a team. But one thing, I stressed to them while I was there because I got to be an outside observer. I said, listen, guys, I'm gonna snatch you guys up at points, and we're gonna take pictures together, you know. And I got him at the end, and I got him when we went out to dinner and everything, and we got a group picture. And Sergeant Major was like, I'm so glad you did that because we just wouldn't have done that. And now I was like, we got this picture, you know, for everybody to have. So that's one thing I stress to guys the most. No matter what career you have or whatever you think or training or this other bullshit, fucking snap a picture with the boys or the
One
girls
one
or
day, that's all
whatever.
you'll have.
That's it. It's all it's going to be memories. And and you never know. You might have a Instagram page where you need content all the fucking time, and you're gonna
Yeah.
be going, Where's that picture of me with so and so, so I
Yeah.
can because he's got a page now too, and we can collaborate and shit.
Like try to
Yeah.
go through hard
So
drives and find pictures and yeah.
a
See, with
disc, I
me,
fired up a disc and got some off.
hell yeah.
Oh,
See, with me, I was always the picture guy. So I have tons of pictures of everybody else, but I don't have as many of myself. And so but I love to look at them and be like, oh, I remember taking this and what we were doing this time and all that. It's like you said, one day, that's it. That's all you got is those pictures. So you got to take them. As much
are
as
you
people are
doing
going to hate
now?
it.
Oh, fuck them. They'll get over it. They'll get over it. Are you happy now doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I am. I'm very happy now. This is like I was saying earlier, I get so much fulfillment. Like the guy I was telling you, he actually has been texting me since I started this. He's in MOS phase right now, and that right there, seeing people, I love those messages of like people being like, hey, I made it here, I made it here. Somebody reached out and be like, oh, I've been watching your videos for so long. That's the stuff that really like I get fulfillment from now. So yeah, I'm able to do what makes me happy. I'm to a point now where with the FNG Academy, I get to go, we do trips like every other month to get together and film content. So every other month I get to go hang out with the boys. It's fun. I'm thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing right now.
I might edit this out, so I mark the clip here. I told this story to somebody yesterday because it just popped into my head, but nobody except my buddy knows this story. Um, Basic training, I crushed every aspect of basic training. Um, but I no doubted it, right? Everything. I finished. I was the top in everything except the PT test, I think. But that didn't matter because I was. I mean, I was a 300, but I wasn't like past at 300 that far. Um, we get to my buddy. Uh, uh, he. I didn't know this until later. Is like chasing me the entire time, like trying to beat me in something. And I'm always first, and he's always second, right? And then we get to the last board. Who's going to be the distinguished honor graduate? And we both got every question right on the board, all of them. And so the first sergeant comes out and goes, "All right, you'll disassemble and reassemble functions check your M16, and whoever does it the fastest will be a winner." And I knew that her saying that was picking me as the winner because I knew how fast I could do it, and nobody, not even the drill sergeants, could fucking touch it because
Yeah.
that's all I did. I just practiced it. For some reason, I knew all cycle. I was like, I'm going to be the best at this. I'm the fastest at this, the fastest, and I was always practicing it. And so they got a flashlight. We're in the dark, and they're going like this, and they say go, and we disassemble, and all the pieces, fall out and hit the deck at the same time. And he tells me later, he goes, man, I looked over, and we're at the same spot. Everything's out, and he's like, I looked down to start reassembling everything, and I heard you click the functions check. Like you finished in like 3 seconds from the time it took me to look away to start picking my stuff up. You functions checked, and they're like, you're Nick, or Ward, you're the distinguished honor graduate. So I finished 1 and 2 again. And I get to my unit, I go to selection, I get selected, I go to the Q course, I pass and everything, right? Fucking he takes that, I don't know, seemingly negative, but he's still stud, great soldier, and takes that and and watches me graduate. And always in his mind, he's always like, I gotta beat Ward. And he had a fucking sheet of paper that said beat Ward on his bunk at
Oh
basic training.
damn.
He takes that, and I'm finding out all of this years later and stuff like that, and figures out how to get to selection. Gets out, from his National Guard unit, does with the process, goes to selection, gets selected, goes to the course, passes the course, graduates, gets his beret. And I started crying when I found out that he did. I was more proud of him
Yeah,
graduating and getting his beret than I was of me doing it.
that's
And so
awesome.
I can't imagine, um, the feeling. I can't imagine. I actually, yeah, that's how it is. Um, Having somebody else, the next generation or somebody that your friend or thing is way more satisfying than you doing it, because you expect so much of yourself, but to be able to share that with somebody else is way more
Yeah.
satisfying. So I love
Yeah.
that for you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. One, and this is like from our YouTube, which now there's not as much like motivational content on the YouTube because Beers and Breakdowns kind of took over that. But we still get people that reach out. We had this one guy reached out and he had just finished his last round of chemo, and he was like, "You guys' YouTube got me through some of the toughest times in my life." And it's like things like that. You're like, that's pretty cool. Like I never would have imagined that I'd be in that, you know, a role where I could, be an inspiration or just even help somebody get through tough times like that. That stuff's always cool.
Love that. I think that's a good point to wrap it up there. I got 5 questions for you that I ask everybody, and I'll cut you loose.
All right, let's do
All right, man. What is your response to thank you for your service?
it. Dude, that's one of the weird ones. So my response when somebody says is I'm always like, "Oh, thank you." Just that's what comes out. Um that's one of those weird ones though. It makes me feel awkward. I think a lot of people share the same sentiment. It's I appreciate the gesture, but then I always think back to all like the stupid shit that I did and be like, if you only knew, if you only knew. But no, I do appreciate it, and I'll always tell people I'm like, oh, thank you.
What is the one characteristic that sets operators apart from the conventional forces?
Right off the bat, I want to say it's your mentality, and I would say also your adaptability. But it's the what we spoke about earlier with being able to override those signals that your body sends up telling you to stop, and being able to override that and continue on when everything is telling you to quit. Because honestly, I don't think that we're superheroes. I think that we just have a superpower of being able to ignore those signs when everything's saying to stop, and we just drive on.
Yeah. For our detriment at
Yeah,
oftentimes.
very much. It can be definitely a double-edged sword.
All right. What is the one moment of your career that you wish you could go back and relive or redo and it wouldn't change where you are now?
Oh, dude, that's an easy one. I haven't heard these questions before, but there's one thing that eats at me about my entire career. I never quit anything throughout my career except for one time. We were in mountain school. We were doing this was the Master Mountaineer course, so it was a wintertime course, and we were ice climbing. And so there was this frozen waterfall, and we're climbing up it. And it was brutal that day. It was so cold, and I got most of the way up the wall. Trying to remember, I can't remember what happened, but I ended up falling off the wall, and so like it wasn't bad. Like you're on ropes, so they lowered me back down. But I didn't get all the way up there. And later on, they're like, we're wrapping everything up, and we're sitting there and we're just freezing cold. And they're like, "Hey, Kurt, you wanted another go at it?" And I was like, "No, I'm good." And I was like, I'm good," because I knew that everybody was wrapping up and we were going to get ready to leave after that. And saying no, I'm good, and not getting up that waterfall has eaten at me ever since then. I did this course in the winter of 2016 into 2017, early 2017. And still to this day, it's the one thing that eats at me is not completing that wall.
Mm. Hmm. Ice climbing. Yeah, you can keep that.
Yeah, it sucks, dude. It really does. I just wish I would have got up that one wall.
I would say you can do it again, but the ice is different next year. It's never the same. It's always something
It's true.
else.
That wall will never be
Yeah.
there.
That
It'll be in
wall
a
will never
different
be there
form.
again. Yep. All right. What is the best piece of advice that you received during your career?
Huh. I feel like it should be something like profound, but the best piece of advice I received from my career throughout my career came in SEER school. So we did SEER. It was wintertime of 2014, I think. And so my class, we actually got, there was this ice blast. They called it an Arctic blast or something. So SEER, our evasion was on Camp McCall. We weren't allowed to leave because it was just covered in snow and everything. We were completely starving. There was no food. We set traps. We tried to go fishing. Everything was snowed out. There was nothing for us to eat. So it was a starvation lane for us out there evading. And every day the cadre would come and they'd check our feet and everything, make sure that, we're not getting, frostbite or anything like that. And I remember we sat in the van and he's checking my feet and I look over and I see he's got these peppermints in the cup holder of the van. And I hit my buddy that's with me. He was a CA guy. His name was Franny. If I could find him, I'd love to talk to Franny again. But I show him and I'm like, man, I wish I could get these peppermints, but I don't want to risk stealing the peppermints and get kicked out or anything like that. So we get out, we finish our checks, and we're walking away. And Franny walks up and he's like, "Hey, Kurt," and he shows me his hand, and he's got peppermints in his hand. And I was like, I fucking love you." And he gives me peppermints, and I'm like, "Dude, you took the peppermints." And he looks at me and he said, "Fortune favors the bold." And after he said that, it stuck with me my entire time. I remember in SEER school, at one point, I found myself in a very small area. And in my mind, I'm like, fortune favors the bold. I'm like carving it in the floor. And now I actually have on my ribs, I have tattooed fortune favors the bold. It's like this whole like nautical theme or whatever, pirate theme. But it all came from Franny. And that's something that's always stuck with me since then. So if you want it, you got to get it. You got to go out there and make it happen. So fortune favors the bold was the best advice I think I received.
Yeah. There's a there's some lines in Seer. If they present you with an opportunity and they don't explicitly say something,
Yeah.
fucking go for it. I
Yeah.
that that's fine. That course fucking blows. There's some there's some people out there that they put out some content and I'm like, that's cheating. Like, why would you say that and stuff? Like, why
Yeah,
would you do that?
people always ask, and we've done a couple videos on SEER school, but we're always very careful about what we say. That's one of those schools where learning about it is not going to make it better. It's only going to lessen your experience. It's gonna suck regardless. If you're going into SEER, you got to go in and just raw dog it, man. You can't try to try to beat the course or anything like that. You need to get the full effect of that course.
No, you could tell people and they wouldn't believe you. So fuck. No. All right, last one, man. What were you afraid of then, and what are you afraid of now?
Then, and this is the thing that got me through everything, and this is my why, and why I tell people you need to have an important why when you're going down this path, is quitting. When I was a kid, I was a huge quitter. I quit everything. Like I wanted to go out and do BMX. I quit that after a day. Taekwondo, sports, all of it. As soon as it got hard, I quit. The thing about quitting is once you quit once, it gets easier to quit each time after that. And so for me, that was one of the main things that led me down this entire path was I wanted to do the hardest thing I could to prove to myself that I wasn't that anymore. And so for me, the biggest thing I was afraid of then was quitting. And honestly, that ties into the whole ice wall. That's why the ice wall gets to me, is because that's one thing that I quit on. Um, I would say it's still I think that now it's not living up to my own expectations is the biggest thing I'm fearful of. Because I already proved to myself I can do hard things. Now I think I set the bar so high for myself that my fear is that I won't live up to those expectations.
Well, one thing say to myself, I have been setting some really unrealistic goals lately, but then also as a caveat to them, I go, man, if I don't achieve them, I'm gonna get really fucking far. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do I'm gonna do some crazy shit. If I fail close to getting close to him, I'm gonna do some crazy shit.
Yeah.
And that's what I go with now. I caveat my ridiculous expectations for myself now.
Yeah. Somebody said, I forget who it was, but he was like, you need to set big, scary, audacious goals. And honestly, that's the whole point. That's like the whole premise behind like the chase fear stuff is like if you're out there and you're doing something worthwhile and you have such an audacious goal, it's going to be scary. It's going to be something that, the fear of failure is real, but that also kind of means that you're on the right path. And so you got to chase that fear.
Yeah, man. Well, as always, it's great talking to you. I appreciate you coming on. How can everybody find you on the socials if they so choose?
So main best place is FNG_Kurt on Instagram. Also we run, or I help run the FNG Academy. So it's at the FNG Academy. And then from there you can get links to our YouTube and everything else. But that's the main spot is Instagram. It's the main hub.
Yeah, man. Really appreciate you coming on. You got anything for me?
I don't, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Always great to talk to another first grouper, and I hope the best for you guys. I really appreciate you. Bye, everybody.